Hey, Ed, are you in the center? Are you in the Oakland Center?
Can you hear me okay or no? I am in the center. So take one.
Okay, I hear you better.
Yeah, that sounds better.
Better.
Yep.
Better. Perfect. All right, so we'll try again. We'll go ahead and launch this meeting so we're launching the Ava Community Energy Community Advisory Committee meeting for Monday, March 18th, 2024. It is about 6:16 p.m. We'll do the roll call if
Great, thank you.
possible.
Member Landry,
Yeah, present.
Member Hugh, Member Eldridge.
Present.
Thank you. Member Swaminathan.
Here.
Thank you. Member Lakshman. Member Pacheco. Member Carr. Member Carr. Vice Chair Souza. Vice Chair
Yes,
Souza.
I'm here.
Thank you. And Chair Hernandez.
Present. In regards to this evening's agenda, we will move item
Wait.
10.
I'm here too.
Oh, Jim.
Member Lutz. Yes.
Hey there. Normally after the chair, like, we're good to go, but.
Absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right, well, if there's no objections this evening, we're gonna be moving item 10, the term assignments to the April CAC meeting. As a reminder, this involves randomly assigning staggered terms to the CAC's members, and that we expect to have newly appointed CAC members sworn in at that meeting or prior to them. So for more context, the staggering of CAC terms was one of the updates the board approved last December, so there wouldn't be any complete turnover of members in any given year. If we want to reference that, again, that item was brought up on consent item number 6, back in December 2023 on the 20th by the board of directors. So that information will be moved, so we won't be covering item 10 here, but we'll push it to the following month. With that, public comment. Adrian, do we have public comment this evening?
There are no hands raised for public comment.
Anybody in the room? Yes, all right, Jessica Tamar.
Yeah, thank you. Jessica Tovar with East Bay Clean Power Alliance. And I just wanted to say that.
We can't hear Jessica. I mean, I can tell that it's her, but I can't hear.
Okay. Is this better if I project my?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
I
it
will
is.
do that. I was just saying that I'm Jessica with the East Bay Clean Power Alliance. And the intent of that alliance was initially to advocate for a community choice program that's committed to launching local clean energy benefits over time, using the money that we pay towards electricity and doing these local investments that would benefit the community in creating jobs, reducing pollution, building local wealth, and building energy resilience, which we'll be talking more about later today. But also, I just wanted to say that, I think this is kind of a new era in Ava Community Energy. And I feel positive about it. And just noting that, there's been a lot of interaction with the local development business plan team, my organization, and other organizations in the community. And I want to encourage that collaborative work together so that we can make these benefits true in our communities and just help uplift communities that have been shut out of the clean energy economy for way too long. And when I say clean energy, I'm not just talking about solar and storage. I'm talking about energy efficiency, the electrification, the community investment, and all the different programs that fall under the local development business plan. So I just wanted to share that. I have a lot of hope moving forward, and I'm excited about it. Clean power to the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that public comment. Any other public comment?
Yes.
Or what?
Davis Harper.
Please.
Hi, all. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
This is Davis Harper. I was recently appointed as the newest Community Advisory Committee member for Ava Community Energy, representing the city of Stockton. Next month is supposed to be my first official meeting, but I just wanted to join today and share that I am looking forward to meeting you all and excited to get to work. I've been a really big advocate for Stockton joining AVA and am really interested in solutions to reduce air pollution burdens and increase energy affordability and ownership for community members living in areas that have been long disinvested in. My background's in climate policy and community organizing, and just wanted to say I don't speak for environmental justice and community-based orgs in Stockton, but I do hope to uplift experiences to ensure that policy and programs here are reflecting the needs of the Stockton community. So just to reiterate, really excited to get started, and yeah, thanks for everybody's time.
Thank you very much, David,
Welcome.
for committing on to the advisory committee. I look forward to meeting you soon.
There are no other hands raised at this time.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we'll go to item number 3, which is approval of minutes from February 20th, 2024. That was shared in the agenda packet. Hand raised, or anybody wants to move that forward? Any other discussion around that item? Member Landry.
I will move the minutes.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Lutz.
Yes, thank you, Lutz. Any other dialogue, corrections, or comments about it? In the room or outside the room? Seeing no hands raised in and out of the room, we'll move the item for a vote. Roll
Great.
call.
Thank you very much. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Hugh, Member Eldridge. Member Eldridge?
Do you hear? I said yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
You're very faint. Great, thank you. Member Swaminathan,
Yes.
Member Lakshman, Member Pacheco, Member Lutz,
Yes.
Member Carr. Member Carr? Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
Well, thank you very much. Last month, I did not attend the board directors meeting as part of the chair report. That's what I picked up. I normally go to the meeting, so I think Vice Chair Souza was able to attend and really appreciated her time and energy and sacrifice there for about an hour as people were in closed session talking about the CEO and agreement or other items. But Vice Chair Souza, do you have an update for us from that last meeting? Please.
Apologize for that. It was a very long meeting. They discussed many good things. We discussed the upcoming power investments, clean power investments. You know, there's a recognition. I met Chair Member Cox, who was amazing, and really enjoyed her teaching while I was there. I'm excited to meet her again. Other than that, it went very smoothly. Everything pretty much went as planned. That's pretty much it. I don't have anything specific. I was still under the learning mode, so here I am. Thank you.
Well, thank you for making that time for the board of directors meeting. I understand it was also an important milestone for your family, so really appreciate making that time. I understand from the minutes, Member Gonzalez motion to appoint Member Tiedemann as vice chair and Member Balch as chair, and then Chair Marquez seconded the motion, which was approved then. So we have a new chair for the board of directors, Member Balch, now Chair Balch, I think from the city of Pleasanton. I think that's something there that was discussed. I think a lot went through for closed session for about an hour of change, working through closed session items, and everything I think we brought forth to them, I think was recognized and expressed. Any other members were able to attend and want to share their experience or any other comments from the meeting? Member Landry.
I didn't attend the meeting, but I am curious, Member Souza, if there was any discussion on, how do I want to say it, prospective appointment of a new CEO and what that process might be. I don't know.
There was not much talk that I was out of session for quite a bit of time, just waiting because there was quite a bit of closed session. I did not hear anything about a proposed replacement CEO, and it was a little bit of a surprise to me to just read the minutes later. I think it came afterwards, but I'm not entirely sure.
I think the notice came out after the meeting that CEO Nick Chasset was going to be moving on to a larger global company. So I understand that, and there's an upcoming item on this Wednesday's agenda to talk more about, I think, a process for a new CEO. So I think that's going to be discussed during the board of directors meeting as a line item in closed session. I think that's what I've seen and appreciate the context. Member Lutz, did you have something from that meeting you want to share?
No,
Okay,
I
think, right.
it's all a blur. Everything's a blur right now. So.
Thank you. Member Eldred, I see your hand raised, please.
Yes, thank you so much. Is the sound better on this one?
Sound perfect.
Okay, great. So I was fortunate enough to be part of the original search committee that, well, not the search committee, but the committee that did interviews for our CEO. And that process was really amazing. There were various finalists who were brought forth, and then a committee that consisted of various members of the board and one member of the advisory committee conducted the final interviews, and we all had score sheets and we did everything like you're supposed to do it. And I would really strongly encourage that collaborative process again. The issues we were facing at the time are different issues than we're facing right now. And I can just only see it as additive and positive for there to be that kind of participation. So when this does get brought up at the board meeting, for like your information, that was the historic process. I think it's really valuable, and I do hope to see it happen again.
Thank you, Member Eldred, for sharing that context and that history. It's very valuable, and I think it should be collaborative, so I second that approach. Thank you. I have nothing else for the chair report. With that, we'll move on to item number 5, which is the AVA Resilience Hub definitions and discussion. I think JP Ross will lead that conversation, and I'll give it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Hernandez. I wanted to follow up on the item that we had at the last CAC meeting. So Adrian, if you can pull up the slides, I did want to do a quick review of what we covered in the last meeting. So if you can go to slide 9, which is the last slide. We'll there you go. Start there. So this is a slide that we covered at the last CAC meeting, which provides an overview of the Resilience Hub program that AVA is working to put together. And actually, Adrian, do we need to take public comment before we start this item? Okay, no, just I saw Anna Olivia's hand raised, so I wasn't sure if that's what that was about. Oh, okay. Great, sorry. There you go. Thanks, Anna Olivia. So wanted to review this, and we want to make this item today a bit of a discussion. So we'll make some time available in between the slides as we're going through them for a bit of discussion to get some feedback from the CAC and the community. But as we reviewed last month at the CAC meeting, we are working to pull together kind of a three-pronged program to support the development of resilience hubs. So one will be community grants that we will be issuing from our community innovation grant funds. These grants would be to work with one or potentially multiple community-based organizations in a multi-year grant to help define resilience hubs, to help build case studies, and kind of facilitate community engagement around the resilience hub definition, and also to help provide potential sites for resilience hubs, which we see to be an ongoing and kind of long-term investment, working with different community-based organizations and providing some guidance and help for those groups to basically bring potential sites forward. And so there's, considerable amount of work to identify those sites, working with communities and bringing them forward. So this community grant would be really focused on helping develop multiple resilience hubs and resilience hub opportunities throughout the service territory. The second prong of this approach is a technical assistance grant that we would be, or technical assistance services that we would be providing through independent engineers. So we've been working with independent engineers for our critical municipal facilities program, where we're working with our cities to site resilience hubs on city-owned properties. It's been very helpful to have engineers who can help us review bids, identify site opportunities, think about the design of resilience hubs, and also the pricing that we've gotten back from the bidders, from the developers of resilience hubs. So we would in turn kind of make that same technical assistance available to these community-based organizations and other resilience hubs that are brought forward from the community and through our community grant. And that technical assistance can also provide some grant writing assistance for different CBOs and other types of resilience hubs who may want to be going out and getting additional funding that's available from the state or federal government. And those two activities, the community grants and the technical assistance RFPs, we plan to issue in March. We're pretty ready to send them out, but we wanted to get some more feedback from this body before we finalize those, which is what today is about. And then lastly, we have our solar and storage incentive. So this is an incentive program that we're developing that will be funded through the budget, the 2023 energy budget surplus. So right now it's about forecasted to be about $40 million. It's 40% of our budget surplus that would be allocated to solar and storage incentives. We're still defining what those incentive levels would be, but they would be higher for resilience hubs and low-income customers, potentially siting resilience hubs on individuals' homes. And there would be a combination of an upfront incentive and ongoing incentives. So kind of the financial incentives are really important in developing solar and storage projects, and especially resilience hubs, as they are quite capital intensive. So we want to make sure that there is funding available for the development of these resilience hubs to help communities put these in place. So that's what we reviewed last week, and then, last month at the last CAC meeting. And what we wanted to do was facilitate a bit more of a discussion on kind of the definition of resilience hubs. What are the services that they can provide, and to whom? And what are the types of facilities where resilience hubs could be developed for community benefit? And so we did issue a survey, sent it out to multiple community-based organizations, our city sustainability staff, the CAC. We got some good responses from CAC members. Thank you very much for that. And we also reached out to LCEA. Jessica, thank you very much for helping to provide surveys to a similar, or responses to a similar survey. So between the survey that we issued and responses that LCEA was able to gather on very similar but not identical questions, we got about 25 responses to those set of surveys. And all those responses were included verbatim in the package so that everybody can kind of see what individuals were saying in response to these questions. Wanted to provide that, but also did some work developing the rest of the presentation, which will kind of try to summarize some of the responses and the trends that we saw in those responses about resilience hubs. So we'll want to go through that and discuss some of those items.
A question?
Yes.
What is sort of the timing and the numbers of resilient, when does which phase of this start, and when do you actually see how many resilience hubs being put on? churches' roofs and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, so we'll be planning to issue the community grant solicitation and the technical assistance request for proposals in March. And then there's a selection process and kind of a contracting process. We'll have to do a grant agreement as well as a professional services agreement with the technical assistance
Right.
providers. That takes a few months, so we would expect to kind of start that activity in the summer, June, July timeframe. Those would be 3-year terms, so
Okay.
quite a long period. And then the solar and storage incentive program, right now, we're also looking at a 3-year term to get that started and get that developed. So this will take a bit of time to develop. The resilience hubs themselves, need to go through kind of a community organizing and facilitation process, and then the development process itself also takes some time. So that's why
So-
we're expecting to run this for multiple years.
Okay, and so if somebody's got something real close to ready to go, they might be able to take advantage of it, of these services, the technical assistance, maybe the end of the year. Everything,
The summer, and these steps are not necessary gates. If an organization has a resilience hub that is ready to be built and all they need is financial incentives, they can go straight to the incentives.
okay,
Don't have to move through
Okay,
all these
okay.
steps. They're kind of available as needed. So
Okay,
we would
good.
hope that if there's projects that are ready to move and just need, the financial assistance to get over the line, then they would just enter straight into the financial assistance.
okay, okay. And you said like, if I'm remembering correctly, it was like 40 million for the incentives down the line.
That's
How
right.
many resiliency hubs would that be enough? Round
Yeah.
numbers. I know you don't have anything definite, but are we talking 100 or 500 or 20 or what?
Yeah, so we're looking at cutting the incentive 50% towards resilience hubs and care customers and 50% towards market rate. So that's $20 million in
Okay,
incentives for resilience hubs and low-income customers. That will completely depend on what the breakdown is between like a single-family home, care customer who's putting a solar and
Oh,
storage
okay.
system on, and like a school or a community center, which will be a much larger upfront
Right.
incentive.
right.
So it's hard to estimate. We will put some numbers forward at the April board meeting, just around kind of showing what those numbers look like, but it's a big estimate based
Right.
on the breakdown of the size of the systems, because the incentive will be paid out based on the size of the system. A bigger battery is going to get a bigger incentive, and it's pretty hard to
Right.
predict
So
how
the
many of those
solar
will
and
come in.
storage incentive is not solely for resiliency hubs.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would imagine even 20 million for resiliency hubs, if there's as much interest as looked like when skimming through the survey answers or the map you showed an awful lot of purple dots, that 20 million could get used up really quickly. Is there talk about extending or repeating
let's-
this as
let's-
budget comes available?
Yeah, I mean, so the board can always put more money into a program. That's up to the
Okay.
board's decision. I'd say let's get some successes on the board with starting to spend $40 million before we jump to needing to
Okay.
increase it.
Okay.
Just as note, the slide that I attached was a tool that a company, and I'm not saying that's the right tool to use, who has identified, churches and community centers and schools. That is not an expression of interest of those communities wanting to put a resilience hub
Right,
on every
right.
single one of those buildings. That's a map of schools and churches and community centers in our territory. So I just want to make sure that that's not being assumed to be like communities that are putting their hands up and trying to build a
No,
resilience
no,
hub.
I was just taking that as an indication of the potential, not the actual desire, but to get an idea of the scale of the demand for it. So, anyways,
Thank you,
end
member.
of questions.
Thank you. Yeah, we can have a free-flowing conversation regarding sort of what the questions are, and we also want to spend about 30 minutes on this item, so hopefully JP can get through a couple more slides of the survey findings, and then we can jump into more dialogue and clarifying questions, and we will have to open it up to, we would like to open it up to public comment, of course, for clarifying or other thoughts, and then follow up with additional comments. So JP, unless there's somebody else with a hand raised, I don't see any, but if you want to continue, you're welcome to do so.
Sure, thanks. We can go to, actually now the second slide, Adrian. Resilience hub definition. So yeah, here's our agenda. So did want to review the feedback from the survey, which really kind of starts with a couple of definitions of what is a resilience hub. One that we took from, that I took from the survey that, that LCEA had provided. Actually, both of these kind of were in that survey response. And so if we go to the next slide, you know, this is a definition we pulled from the survey. It's quoting the Asia Pacific Environmental Network definition. I looked for this definition on APEN's site, couldn't find it, so I just copied the response from the survey itself, but I'll let folks kind of read this. This definition has both a technical and community focus, as well as an element of kind of where what the purpose of resilience hubs are and kind of how they are based in the community demand and building up local communities versus just kind of an energy resilient definition. So I thought it was important to kind of to call that out. So this is one definition that was provided. If we go to the next slide, Adrian, the Urban Sustainability Directors Network also has another definition, which is a little bit, I'd say, more on the kind of the technical side. My point here is there's many definitions of what resilience hubs are, and I think a lot of those are actually going to come from the communities that they're serving versus having kind of one specific resilience hub definition that you know, that is kind of serves all resilience hubs. That said, it's going to be important for us as we build this program out to define what it is that we're expecting to get out of it and what the types of resilience hubs are that will be supported, especially as we think about providing an incentive and a high incentive or a large incentive for resilience hubs. There's going to need to be some boundaries around what qualifies as resilience hubs that are eligible for those higher incentives. This is a key result that we would expect coming out of our community-based organization engagement, is a further definition of what resilience hubs are as we go and move to roll out this program. So if we go to the next slide, kind of starting to dive into a little bit more of the meat here. One thing that I think is important to think about is, as we're thinking about resilience hubs, what are the services that we are expecting those resilience hubs to provide to the community? And so I did tried to define the responses in the 25 survey responses of kind of what were the major elements of community support that resilience hubs were finding. And of course, these are consolidated definitions, but I thought it was worthwhile to kind of bring it forth. I did develop a word, what is this called? Word cloud on the different words across all of the responses to the services that were provided, but then also made an effort to kind of consolidate those into a few areas. So just reading them out. So we have heating and cooling, charging center, communication center. This, you know, varied from people recommending kind of charging of cell phones and medical devices all the way up to charging EVs and homes. So the charging requirement could be, you know, pretty widely different. Also food and water distribution, certainly in times of emergency, a lot of the kind of emergency responsiveness came out, non-surprisingly. Also clean air and air filtration. So I think pointing to, you know, fires and days where people are unable to necessarily get clean air in their own home, especially if there's a power outage. health services, support for electrification, and providing communities with education around climate change and awareness came up. And then there were a couple responses where there was only one out of the 25, kind of like providing medicine storage and distribution, or medicine cooling in times of power outages, community garden, disaster response information. So these were some of the responses that came out of the survey, and wanted to also open it up and see if there are other services that come to mind for resilience hubs, or if any of these are of particular importance to the folks here in the CAC and the public.
Great, thank you, JP. I think we'll go into some conversation about what resilient hubs are, what they could be, some of the things that were highlighted here that are important about community spaces. Members in the room or on Zoom, please feel free to raise your hand, and then we'll go into clarifying comments or comments from the public as well. Member Landry.
Yes, I was wondering, I see homeless support services and food distribution and health, and I'm also thinking about emergency grants and social services. And as a social worker in Alameda County, I am considered a emergency disaster worker, so I would.
I'm so sorry. Member Landry, can you move closer to your microphone? You started strong, but then it went away.
Thank you.
Olivia. So yeah, so as a social worker, in fact, if you work for Alameda County Social Services, you are an emergency disaster worker by definition. So maybe we can include, as I said, social services, emergency grants. I don't know if FEMA has a role in this, but things that are additional things, I don't want to make it too complicated, that come into play when there's a disaster.
Thank you.
Just 1 second to look up. We'll have to look at members first, and we'll look at member Eldred. Well, then we'll go to the public shortly.
Thank you so much. This is a clarifying question as opposed to a comment, because I know we do those after public comment, like you just said. I'm just wondering whether or not there's been any discussion around hours. I know that one of the issues that we face with the current exceptionally limited heating and cooling or clean air filtration spaces is that they're only open from 9 to 5 or something like that, and actually kicks everyone out at 5 when it's the hottest time of the day, or when the fires are happening and the smoke is so bad and everyone's kicked out at 5 o'clock, which means that they get to go sleep in that really, really polluted air. So I'm just wondering if there's been discussion around hours yet, and I'll save the rest of my comments for after public comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that was a great point. I was thinking we could also cover that on slide 7 into kind of who is being served by resilience hubs, and also I think that gets to the how or the when of those members or community members or people who are served by these resilience hubs. So I think that's a great point. Thank you.
Yes, hey there, Member Pacheco, welcome. Hey, you want to put that mic down so you can hear you?
So this was probably covered when you did your presentation last month, which I missed. Couple questions. What's like the minimum capacity, or have you guys has it been discussed, like the minimum size or capacity for a center? Obviously, I would think the larger the better, probably, but yeah. So that was my first question.
So I think that again gets to the kind of what is the need. So if you're just providing, say, cell phone charging and communication, that's very different than if you're going to do a heating or cooling center that would need to have a much larger load, support a much larger load as far as a solar and battery system, as well as the number of people that you're trying to provide support for. So I think that depends a lot on what's the use case for the resilience hub. And so I think, through the incentive program, we are considering, low-income homeowners and their ability to install solar and storage for their own resilience. So for the residential program, it would be a residential home. For a resilience center, a resilience hub, that will be based on what's the community need and what's the services that are planning to be provided. That's part of what the technical assistance is aiming to support, which is that, a resilience hub would come with a use case, charging communications devices or heating and cooling center or emergency services, and help to identify, okay, what's the energy that you need for that? How long? What's the duration that you would need? And to do some system sizing and design around, how do you provide that resilience, that backup energy for that use case?
Okay, no, thank you. That's helpful. I wasn't clear that we're, depending on the feedback from the community, that different resiliency centers may have a different suite of services. It's not like we're looking for heating and cooling at every single one, or, well, from your response, it's sounding like we're not looking for everything at every center necessarily.
Correct.
Okay, so.
I think that would be defined by what the community's looking for, what the
Sure.
resilience hub purpose is. Yeah, it could be very different at a community center or a library to a church, or, those could have different needs.
And I'll just throw it out there. I was thinking union halls, which are usually smaller than most churches, so I was wondering what the smaller size would be, but that would fit for one of these. But another question is, and again, it may be in the materials, but the money, is there any money towards staffing, or is this just for infrastructure, just for facilities upgrade?
Yeah, the incentive program that we have is to support the development and operation of the solar and storage system, of the backup power system.
Well, I was thinking about the resiliency, for the resiliency centers. Are you saying, I mean, because sorry, so is the money only going to the storage, to the
The incentive what our funds are supporting is the development of the clean energy backup system, the
Okay.
solar and storage system. There's not staffing costs or operational costs.
No
that are
energy efficiency
covered.
upgrades or any other
We-
kind of
we have our-
communications upgrades? Or?
Right, we have our energy efficiency program, which is a separate program, the Building Energy Efficiency Accelerator.
Okay.
But yeah, the incentive program here is for solar and battery backup.
Okay, again, that's also helpful. Thank you. Me having missed the last presentation where this was probably talked about, because I was thinking like there's going to be multiple upgrades for, like if it's a cooling center, it may need some upgrades for it to be a cooling center. Communications, it may need an upgrade on the communication systems that are there, but we're not looking at this time for EBC to be supporting any of that. We're just supporting the energy. Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. And I see the hand raised for Member Souza, Vice Chair, excuse me. And we'll come back to the public comment shortly. Thank you. And then we'll go to Vice Chair.
Thank you. I think it may be helpful to think of a situation, and we've all experienced it when we had the fires during the very, very hot spell, rather than balloon it out to be something that would be a community center. This would actually be, I would imagine, more of a short-term solution to get us over a bad situation, like the situation, what was it, 2021, 2020, how many years ago it was, when the skies turned into Mars, and the air quality is so bad, and power was being shut off in the middle of heat waves. So I would hope that we would define the resiliency centers as something that would be more encapsulated into that scenario, rather than something larger that might end up being a month-long situation, which would change the whole chemistry of what we're looking for. But that's just my opinion.
Very much appreciated, because that's why we're here to define what a resiliency center is and how we're going to advise and support and align with AVA and support that measure funding forward for the board of directors consideration. Member Lutz.
Sort of in answer or commenting on Member Pacheco's comment, I was thinking that in both the sort of the consultant organizer and the technical advisor would also include assistance on applying for grants for related services, which could cover staffing or, you know, other things besides just solar and storage. So,
Yeah, agreed. So our incentives is just covering the solar and storage, and it's tied to the size of the storage system. The grant writing technical assistance, you know, there's broad funding available, state and federal, and that funding can go towards other operations of the Resilience Hub.
and the technical assistance can help write those grants, or at least advise them how to do it. Okay.
JP, do you want to cover more of your slides, or should we take public comment?
No, let's take public comment, and then we can go to the next couple slides.
Perfect, thank you. Public comment, if you want to come to the microphone and introduce yourself, and making sure that we can hear you clearly, and those in the room, and I think you have 3 minutes, is that what it is?
Three minutes.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Hello, my name is Susan Silber. I'm the project director for an organization called Collective Resilience. And the mission is to help resilience hubs evolve and flourish. So I've been doing a lot of work over the past several years. Been working with the city of San Leandro, doing research on schools as resilience hubs, community visioning sessions with the East Oakland Collective, among many groups. I'm also been on many meetings with the East Bay Clean Power Alliance. So very excited that Ava Energy is putting resources into resilience hubs, but I want to be clear that the programming side is so critical for this work. The focus on building trust and relationships, social cohesion, the community care for vulnerable residents, there's not that much money out there for this work that is so essential to resilience hubs, and I would implore you to please consider putting funding toward the programming side of it. The food distribution, the mutual aid, the education, the information to prepare for extreme heat, et cetera, et cetera. So, I also want to share that there are 3 modes to resilience hubs. The first is just the day-to-day when there isn't an emergency, and that is just as essential as the disaster itself. And then the third mode is the recovery. So looking at resilience hubs in those 3 modes is really important, as well as looking at different levels of resilience hubs and thinking about, you know, a centralized hub as well as a decentralized approach. There's so many sites that are and want to be resilience hubs. So a small community center or a synagogue or a church can be like a low, sort of a basic resilience hub. But then you can also have your sort of main centralized resilience hub that provides a lot more. So looking at that approach, I think is really important, and funding the multiple sites and providing smaller grants to the smaller capacity organizations is really essential here. So really thinking outside the box, I think, is really important, thinking holistically beyond the infrastructure. And I assure you that the co-benefits of resilience hubs are enormous. I've worked with many sites. I've seen them bring together neighbors who have met before, multi-generational programs, youth leadership, etc. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your passion and dedication to Resilient Hubs. I look forward to learning more, talking with you more. Other comments in the room, public? You're welcome to introduce yourself and then speak for about 3 minutes if you'd like to.
Sure.
Make sure we have that microphone up high so that yes, there we go.
Good evening, all. My name is Ryan. I'm a part of Green the Church. We are a nonprofit organization geared to helping people and places of faith become more environmentally aware. This organization was started by Reverend Dr. Ambrose Carroll, who read the book, The Green Job Economy, and said, where's the Black church where environmental justice meets? A lot of churches have been on the social movement train, but not on the environmental movement. So we've been pulling churches together for the last 10 years, becoming environmental justice hubs, doing national summits, The work specifically in California, we've been recently doing our climate revivals. We just had one at Williams Chapel. We talked about water, we talked about infrastructure, we talked about buildings and control and just being here and the lack of funding. When things happen, people need churches, places of faith, synagogues, temples, mosques. It's a hard world out there. And when stuff happens, people need to rely on faith. So just happy to be in the room and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Again, Jessica Tovar with East Bay Clean Power Alliance.
Real close to the
And-
microphone, please.
Yeah. Jessica Tovar, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. I just wanted to say that I also support really kind of distributing funds and resources to organizations and groups where they're at, as opposed to, I feel like the proposal right now is very heavy on the solar and storage, which is very important. Like that list that you had there that had, charging phones and all the different needs, the heating, the cooling, all of that is going to need that islandable solar and storage to keep going and to have access to and power. But not everybody is near there yet. Some organizations actually need funds just to organize and to allocate like a staff person's percentage of time towards organizing for resilience. And Local Clean Energy Alliance, believe it or not, is a tiny organization. It's very dependent on volunteership than it is actually having staff. And so just recognizing that there's so many small organizations who are doing great work with very minimal resources, who could really be a game changer in their community if they have the proper amount of resources and can work towards getting a site commitment to get a microgrid, which is very difficult because a lot of us don't own a building. And so we're dependent on building that relationship with those that do, so that we can get a commitment to get that islandable solar and battery storage. But I want to, extend the idea of opening up our minds even further. There's a group of folks who bring resilience to people who cannot go somewhere. And I'm talking about the disabled community, where during those fires, they made air filters out of fans and MERV 14 filters and delivered them to the homes of people who were wheelchair or bedbound, for example. There are organizations who actually went and distributed the N95 masks during the fires and reached people who couldn't get the information in their own language, didn't know that you needed a special mask at that time to filter out that smoke. So there's so many efforts on the ground that can use the resource, and that we really need to meet people where they're at and get them to the point where we can get that microgrid or nanogrid, whatever. And then, just recognizing that places of worship have been left out of the critical municipal facilities program, and that I see it very critical that we bring them in. I have lots more to say. You've seen my letter, $15 million to start a really good resilience hub program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the comments in the room. I just want to make sure any attendees online have any hands raised or anything else like that to speak to. Any kind of comments regarding the first part of the presentation? And I'm not seeing any hands at the moment, nor the participants, so I'll give the mic back to JP.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate the commentary. I do think, it's important to recognize that AVA, in our kind of role, is, we're providing energy services to our communities and customers. And so the energy dollars that we're getting are, in this program, especially for the incentive program, going to be focused on the energy-related portion of the resilience, so the solar and storage piece. So I do think there's other additional funds that is available that could support kind of programmatic or non-energy related resilience activities, food distribution or otherwise. And that, that funding could be through a grant, and, our technical assistants could help provide some grant writing assistance. But the incentives that we're providing, or that AVA is providing, is really going to be for the resilience, the solar and storage. Great. So let's see, going on to the next slide, Adrian, if we can, slide 6. So just wanted to kind of highlight some of the ideas that came forward in the survey responses about the types of resilient types of facilities and community community facilities that can serve as a resilience hub. So certainly the churches came forward, parks and community centers, rec centers, libraries, as well as schools, and then housing complexes. So medium and multifamily affordable housing, and then individuals' homes. So those were the facilities and types of buildings that came forward in the survey. I did have been doing a lot of research on resilience hubs and some of the work that's been done by other organizations. I pulled a screenshot from PSE Healthy Energy, an interesting organization serving the outlets in Oakland and serving the county. They've done a mapping exercise of different facility types, many of which are covered in the types that I called out, and they do a very simple mapping exercise to identify the roof size and the potential solar and storage that could be built on those different resilience hubs. And this could serve as this is an example of a tool that could be used to just identify different opportunities for resilience hubs to help build that baseline of education. As many people have stated, communities don't necessarily know how to get going with developing a resilience hub, and so providing some tools can be quite helpful. If we go to the next slide, so who benefits? I think this did another word cloud here of kind of the different responses from the surveys to answer this question of who benefits from resilience hubs, who is served by these kinds of community centers. And as be expected, there's a wide range of definition from everybody to particular residents or members. I think from our perspective, this gets to maybe one of the questions or issues that Anna Olivia raised, of kind of making sure that these investments are kind of long-term. We want these resilience hubs to be operating for many years. There are investments not only in kind of the technology, but also in building trust and resilience within the community, places that people know where to go in times of emergency, but also that they need to be open, not only to all people, but also during hours of emergency, which doesn't necessarily mean 9 to 5, because people need emergency services for longer than those hours of operation. So these are some of the things we're going to have to think about as we develop the framework for the resilience hubs and the incentives, which is kind of who's benefiting and making sure that those benefits are widely made widely available. And then lastly, the barriers to resilience hub development and operation. There are quite a few barriers, and we want to make sure that we're addressing as many of those as we can with the funds that we've got. So some of the barriers here that we pulled out were community organizing, the funding to support resilience hub operation, technical support, the battery and solar system installation, identifying sites, program management, and then the local training on the value of resilience hubs. There are some of the things here that I think we are well situated to support with our incentive program and also the technical assistance that we're providing. And there's some areas here that are recognized, are barriers that are really going to be relying on the community and the organizers for resilience hubs. But ideally, the program that we're putting in place can really help to address some of these barriers. And with that, I think we can kind of open up to our last set of commentary.
Great. And I think when you said the program, and just I'll take some privilege in regards to the program, so we understand why we're doing it, what we're doing, but I'm curious more about the how we're going to reach individuals, community benefit organizations. The slide says who benefits, the members in our community. How are we sort of looking to reach to community members or locations of house of worship, parks, libraries, rec centers, etc.? How are we looking to programmatically do that? Do we have a model, or is it just a website that here, fill in your information and go from there? Or are we doing some public outreach, reaching out with dedicated resources to community members who are active and showing interest in the space? Do we have a program or idea, or is that still being developed? If I may ask?
Yeah, so we see that as one of the key roles of through the community grant, is working with community-based, one community-based organization or potentially multiple, who can then kind of be provide those outreach services and work with other interested community members who want to cite a resilience hub in their area and provide them the tools. So I showed the mapping tool. There's other tool sets out there. RMI has one, Oregon has one. There's multiples of like how to kind of build the community knowledge and start doing some of the identification of the services that are provided to, kind of build out a bit of a framework for what the community is looking for, what's a potential site, what would be the services. And so the CBO that we would be working with would kind of help to define what those toolkits are and do some of that outreach to different, geographies and community groups within our service area to identify those potential sites.
And if I may have a follow-up question, and just to understand, this is one of the first times that AVA, or formerly East Bay Community Energy, has endeavored to do such large allocation of resources, not just locally, but the resilient hubs. Is that right?
This, $40 million program, $20 million for resilience hubs is the biggest program that we.
Yeah, and I think it's somewhat going to be iterative. You're going to learn, do some things, improve next time. So hopefully it's one of many times we're able to really understand how this proceeds and moves forward. I want to take questions from the members if we can, and we'll go further into any other public comment that we might want to do, and then we'll close out this topic. So I'll look to see folks in the room or members of that advisory committee. And go ahead and just raise your hand if you'd like to, or I'll take them in the room. Okay, members for Midtown.
Yes, hi JP. Do we have good examples of in other communities the resiliency center topic? Are there other established resiliency centers we are aware of?
So that is one of the outcomes that we are asking through our community grant partner, is to kind of define successes. There's certainly efforts underway. Lincoln Park in Oakland, San Leandro has some very active resilience hub work. Many of our cities are progressing on this. We have our own program for resilience hubs on municipal, owned facilities. And so we certainly want to gather those kind of best practices and definitions out of this first effort to kind of, document what's worked and what hasn't in developing resilience hubs.
Now in Fremont, there is fire stations and solar storage work was done with CEC funds and probably East Bay Clean Energy funds. Would you consider that as a resiliency center?
Yeah, there's 3 fire stations. I mean, that's actually the model for our municipal critical facilities program, is to build those out on city-owned facilities. And so, yeah, we would consider that a model of resilience hubs. There's been a lot of requests for other resilience hubs not sited on city facilities. And so in response to that request is also what has developed the impetus for this program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Member Pacheco.
Clarification question. We're looking, you're going to be putting out the RFPs, and I imagine like most of the respondents are going to be CBOs. But were you saying there at the end that you're kind of envisioning the way that this is going to be shaped is Ava, you and Ava working directly with like a single CBO that kind of then works with other CBOs? Okay. And that would be determined through the RFP or the response to the RFP, or you already have
That's
someone?
correct. Yeah, so we would want one CBO. We could, we have a very large service territory, so maybe we need to work with a couple, but, having one or two community-based organizations that we're working with that are then kind of going out into the community and identifying sites and working with groups who are interested in developing resilience hubs.
Okay. And would you, if that's the model that emerges, like, would you see that CBO also being like the direct contact like the school districts, or is that something that as an agency you would be direct? Okay, so you're looking at the CBO to do all of the contacts between agencies, school districts, other CBOs. Okay, thank you.
I see a hand raised for public comment. I think we can take that at the moment, if that's fine. Then we'll take final comments on this item after that.
Okay. Audrey Ichinose, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. May I speak now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Sorry, I think too little attention is being paid to exactly how things will be financed. I mean, I think it goes back to an earlier slide about the solar and storage incentive. It seems to me that there's that the generation from the solar and storage is valuable, and who gets that value? Can't we not use wouldn't that finance part or wholly the resilience hub? I'm just confused. I don't think we understand enough how that incentive, I don't know, even the word is a little unclear to me, how that generation will be handled. Who will own it? Who will, how will it be translated into, the funds to both install and then maintain the operations of this resilience hub? I think there's a lot. What is envisioned for that end of this finance generating part of the proposal?
So yeah, when homes, businesses, churches, organizations install solar and now solar and storage, they are able to reduce their purchases of energy from AVA and other utilities. So that does create some energy savings from the energy bill. However, the capital investment of solar and storage is high, and that's why there have traditionally been many incentive programs for, in past years for solar only. This program will be for solar paired with storage. And so the ongoing savings from the energy bill basically pay off the upfront investment in purchasing a solar and storage system. So that's a very standard net metering arrangement. Net metering, is how people, with solar kind of get some credit for the energy that's generated from their solar system. And so the site host, call it the church, for example, does achieve some longer term savings on their energy bills, but they do have to put money up front in order to install the solar and storage system. So the value of those energy savings kind of go into paying down the capital investment, but that capital investment can be high. That's why we have an incentive program here to reduce that upfront cost.
Thank you, JP. And we have one more comment online, so I think we'll look to another guest attendee.
Thank you. Bradley Cleveland, you're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Bradley Cleveland. I'm an Oakland resident and a consultant with IBEW Local 595. And I wanted to speak in favor of this program and would argue that additional funding, I think you're looking at splitting the funds 50-50 between individual homeowners and resiliency hubs. And I'd argue for additional funds going to the resiliency hubs, specifically because right now there's an opportunity to provide matching funds. Right now, nonprofits, city agencies, schools, churches, nonprofit organizations who install solar and battery are now eligible for federal tax credits, even though they don't pay taxes, under a new program called Direct Pay. So Ava Energy could make sure that its funds are maximized by being able to draw down 50 to 70% of the cost of these systems for, or at least not the resiliency hubs, but specifically for the solar and battery storage. That's huge incentive for developing these systems. And second, I'd like to speak to another element of resiliency, and that's having a trained workforce to be able to install these kind of infrastructure. And so I think that as we're looking at this, it's a good moment because Ava Energy just passed a policy around workforce and environmental justice. And I think being able to train young apprentices to move into this field is critical at this point. So very excited about this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your public comment. Understanding that you'd like to see more monies allocated to the resilience hubs versus the solar and storage incentives. I do see one more public comment online, plus another panelist, one of our members. I might want to go back to the room here present. I think there was a comment in the room, or yes, please. And we'll go back to public comment, and then one of our members.
Yeah, just sharing that I think that $100,000, $300,000 is not enough funding for what you're asking for the community-based organization. We've been advocating for a network approach, a coalition approach, whereby you bring in and a multi-sector coalition of groups that are working toward resilience hubs and really honor the work that is already happening in resilience hubs. And that is going to take a lot more than just $100,000 per year. And so I just want to invite you to spend a lot more money on that, and also look at the other organizations that are already doing the work, like Stop Waste, BayREN, cities, and invite them to, from the start, to be a part of a network, part of a coalition. So yeah, we are hosting a workshop on resilience hubs that is starting next Tuesday. I would invite you all to participate in that. There's going to be about 150 people as part of that online workshop. And the Rice Center is an excellent case study in Richmond of a resilience hub. We'll be taking a tour of that. And also, if you look at Climate Resolve, they have done great work in Boyle Heights with their resilience hubs.
If you don't mind sending some of that information to our clerk, and that'd be great. And if not, have Jessica get in touch so that make sure maybe that we can get the information. So it seems like you have a relationship there. That'd be great to hear more information. I'm going to go back to one of the attendees, Paola, if we could, and then we'll go to our member Aldred.
Great, thank you. Paula Gersing, Carson, you're allowed to speak for 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm Paola Carson. I'm a climate fellow with the City of Oakland and have been working on some resilience hub network organizing around that. And I just wanted to bring up local businesses as possible locations for resilience hubs, to add that to your definition of resilience hubs. There's a wonderful cafe in Oakland that's beginning the process of becoming a resilience hub. And I think it's a good chance for us to expand that definition, because local businesses like the cafe, Sochi, the dog cafe, have a similar way of bringing community together, and an opportunity for creating resilience work there. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Would you mind repeating or sharing the information of that cafe?
Yeah, That's Zochi the Dog Cafe. And I can, if there's someone I can follow up with, I can send the information of the contact person there.
Yes, if you could please send it to cob@avaenergy.org.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Clerk of the board. All right, thank you, Member Eldred. Thank you for being so patient.
Thank you. Well, public comment's the most important comment. So I'm just gonna back that speaker up and say Zochi the Dog is a great cafe and it's blocks from my old place and not that far from a new one. So I'm just happy to hear that. Couple comments and follow-up questions. JP, thank you. This presentation has been fantastic. What you're doing is fantastic. And I'm so excited to see like these concepts that are so core to the local development business plan and the reason that East Bay Community Energy and now Ava Community Energy was formed. Was really, this is the heart of it. And it's so excited to see this work happening. I am wondering whether staff is going to work with folks who are applying for these grants to help match them to other programs inside of Ava Community Energy. Like we do have an energy efficiency program. Like, so if somebody applies for a Resilience Center to be a Resilience Center, will they automatically get matched with those other programs or introduced to them? Are there Can we get somebody who's like, look, here's the things that you would qualify for. These are all the programs we know of that serve your area. You're a renter, you're a homeowner, you're a, whatever it is. You're in Oakland, you're in Hayward, you're in unincorporated. Like these are the programs that you could apply for that could help round out that funding and help minimize any existing gap. Like that would be a really cool service. I was looking for it at the first place I rented. I don't know if you remember this, but my awesome landlord installed new windows that were about an inch smaller in all directions around the outside, and then just put that little piece of plastic around so the wind used to go in and the rain would come in. But he got the tax credit for the energy efficiency windows. So, I tried for a long time to find some place that would let me have an idea of what resources I could even present to my landlord to make my quality of life better and keep my rent or my like electricity bill lower, and that didn't exist. I'm looking for the same service now. So if you know of one of those things, that would be super cool. But as far as I can tell, that like actual wraparound services for people trying to figure out how to do energy things for their home doesn't exist. And it would be a really cool thing to provide. And lastly, small clarification. It sounded like some resiliency centers could be individual homes, and I'm curious if staff has developed requirements or has an idea. I realize that's probably not done yet, but has an idea about what it takes to call your home a resiliency center. And again, hours of operation are an important thing. And who is allowed to come, like density of neighbors, that kind of thing. There's certainly different needs for different geographic areas and different densities. A lot of homes that are particularly vulnerable to fire are higher income homes. A lot of homes that are particularly vulnerable to the smoke that comes from fire can be lower income homes. Like it's because of their placement. So I'm just, if it hasn't been developed yet, I'm hoping that this body and the public get a real clear understanding of what it takes to have your individual house receive one of these grants.
So just to be clear, the funding is proposed to be split 50% towards resilience hubs and low-income homes, and the other 50% towards non-low income, market rate. And so that's not to say that every residential house that has a solar and battery needs to be a resilience hub, but we want to make a higher incentive available to low-income care customers so that they can benefit from solar and battery. And then just, and Olivia, we do have, if you go to incentives.avaenergy.org, we have an incentive finder, which kind of rolls up the incentives that are available by zip code and has electrification and EVs, other lots of incentives that we've kind of rolled that up. So yeah, that's one place to go.
Thanks. It
Thank you
still
very
would be a cool thing to have a staff navigate, because those things can be confusing, like they really can.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Yes. Come aboard. Is that public comment for this item still?
For the resilience hub.
All right, I think third time's the charm.
Okay, this is what I wanted to say. GP, correct me if I'm wrong, there's $1.4 million that's been allocated for the next 4 years. You've granted already 3 grants at 100,000 per year for 3 years. If I'm not mistaken, there should be at least $500,000 more left in that pot of money. And if that's the case, I think we have plenty of money to distribute small grants and multiple large grants so that we can get this thing going, starting with where people are at. Am I correct? That's how much money is left?
Yeah, we have 2 other grants that are, one that on EVs and one on resilience hubs. That would be the 5 that have been allocated for the year.
And then that would.
And then there's next year. So there's additional funds within the community engagement.
Yeah, I would recommend that we start talking about dispersing resilience hub funds sooner than later, even if it means tapping into like some of that other money. So I think 1.4 million for each year for the next 4 years, that's great, but the need is right now. And if we don't do this now, the next disaster that hits, we will not be prepared. And when we're not prepared and we don't have the resources, a lot of really already vulnerable people lose. And so I do appreciate that this agency did provide resources during the 2020 pandemic when that happened. But I think that we're in a place now where we can do this better and prepare as opposed to respond in the middle of a crisis. And then also recognizing that there are mutual aid efforts on the ground that don't fall under a nonprofit. And we need to start thinking about including those efforts as well. Like the people that were doing delivering the resilience needs to the people who couldn't get out of their home. So just putting that out there.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I think I understood from JP the RFP regarding these grants will be going out in March or this month. That's great. Sure. Any other public comment or any other concerns this evening around this item? Member London.
Yes, I would like to see the larger allocation also that Jessica just mentioned and others have brought up.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm happy to support that too. We have to do as much as we can, advising the board of directors that there is a huge need. There is demand. It's unprecedented for this agency. So much money that they're providing incentives and efforts. And whatever we can do to reach the most people where they're at is critical in those spaces that will help uplift the community, serving the intent of AVA to be a community-based, community-benefiting organization, creating resiliency and hope in our communities. Thank you very much for the item. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to the next item. I think we're going to be speaking to the CSC appointments. I think, Kate, you're speaking to that? Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Chair Hernandez. Good evening, everybody. My name is Kate Cady, Public Engagement Coordinator here at AVA Community Energy. I'm happy to be with you all to just talk through a new round of CAC appointments that are going before our board this Wednesday. So for this item, I'm planning on just providing a little bit of an overview of the application and appointment process that we've been undergoing here. So to start off with just a bit of background, AVA staff have coordinated an open application process to fill a few vacancies currently on our CAC. And these include both current and upcoming. So those include a member from our Eastern region representing Livermore, Pleasanton, Dublin, a member from our North region, which is Albany, Emeryville, Oakland, Berkeley, and Piedmont, and then all 5 alternates. So all of those are vacant right now, one representing each service area region. So this application went live in roughly late December and stayed open through early March. Throughout this kind of little over 2-month period, AVA staff did a lot of coordinated outreach, reaching out to board members and alternates, CBOs, city staff from each of our member jurisdictions, and promoting the application in all of our social media accounts, newsletter, and our website. And throughout the course of this time, we received about 21 completed applications, 12 from our northern region, 3 from the central region, and then 6 from the eastern region. As a next step in this process, the application closed March 4th, by the way, and then we coordinated with our board of directors from each of these member regions where we received applications. Those board directors had the opportunity to review those applications and then make their recommendations for appointment. So you'll see that those names of those 5 appointment recommendations in the resolution and staff report right here on the screen. And yeah, this will go before the board for final approval as the regional board directors make the recommendations, and then the entire board needs to approve those recommendations. So that is just a little bit of an overview. We look forward to hopefully welcoming some new members to the committee soon, and I'll leave it there and would love to hear any feedback or questions.
Briefly, if I may just quickly jump in regards to the appointed members that were on the screen, are you able to share what cities they reside in, just so for context in those regions?
Yeah, absolutely. So from the northern region, I believe those are Berkeley and Piedmont. Eastern region, both from Livermore, and then central, I think it's unincorporated Alameda County. So those are all jurisdictions that are not currently represented on the CAC, so that could be exciting to have those folks.
And then as a follow-up, and I don't know if I see any hands raised, which is good. In the incentives and the opportunities to get more alternates involved, how many alternates do we have? I don't think I asked that question earlier when we saw that, but do we have a number of alternates? And I don't know if we've had many alternates.
We have had many alternates, but we've had such great alternates that they end up stepping up into kind of full regular member positions over the past couple years. So there are 5 total like allocated alternate positions, 1 for each region for the CAC. And with these appointment recommendations, we would be bringing on 3 alternates to fill at least 3 of those vacancies. We did not receive any applications from the southern region of the service area, which is Fremont, Union City, and Newark, or the San Joaquin County region, which is Tracy, Lathrop, and Stockton. So in our next round of applications, we hope to do some additional outreach there and try to get some folks to apply. So those will remain vacant until our next open application period.
And then just from my perspective, encouraging participation, not only from the members, but the alternates. Has the board ever discussed providing a stipend for the alternative members to attend the meetings or something like that that could make sense to get them to attend and not just be alternate, like, well, my member's not coming, so I'll show up. Is that something that's been discussed in the past? And I don't know. I mean, I understand there's somewhat of financial impact because we are bringing on these members. The budget's $20,400, but maybe it's something we want to discuss further. So then you up the budget a little bit, encouraging those alternate members to attend, incentivizing them, so that way they can keep up. Because when I was an alternate for the city of San Leandro, I had to ramp up, and this is not an easy media to ramp up for, because you have all this deep knowledge, all this information, and that would go when my main member wouldn't be able to go and not show up. But other than no incentive and being on other committees, just wondering how that would look. Maybe a possibility to have that opportunity and discussing that further. I think there might be potential to really build our bench here at the CAC, and ideally, maybe they're in the board of directors if those people would choose to run for office, and now they have better exposure to AVA and the community that they're serving. Something for consideration, I thought. But yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. member list, and then we'll do a Pacheco, and then we'll go online, and then we'll do the room. I mean, might be an action item. Is it an action item?
It's an action item for the board. Yes.
For the board, that's informational for us. Is it? Or what would you like?
I think it's up to.
Right, just to, just for the CAC to provide its perspective.
Great. I will take more comments and then we'll take an action item so we have more data.
We couldn't hear what you just said, Adrian.
I just said that it's an action item only because it was an action item for the board.
So I'd like to do a point of clarification. The CAC has historically had limited input on, I guess the limited input is on who the members are, not the process. So never mind.
Member list.
I would like to not speak against any of the people that have been selected, but speak against the process.
Okay.
And sort of push back on it. What Ann Olivia said is we, as the CAC, never saw the applicant's application. So we didn't have a chance to comment on which ones were appropriate or which ones we thought were best or would be good and for what reasons. So I'm reluctant to support this because, I know Rachel DeFranco and Pete Stevenson's attending, and he's not even a member. So I don't want to speak against them, but I want to speak against the process because, I don't know who else was on the list but was not included because at one point they insulted the mayor of Oakland or something. So that's why I think this was done poorly.
Mm-hmm.
And Olivia gave an example of how the CEO was selected at the beginning. It obviously can't be that involved for CAC members, but, somebody, I'm just saying that this is not a good way for CAC to approve future members because we don't know, we see 5 names out of 21. We don't see the qualifications of those 5 names or the qualifications of the 16 other names.
Yes.
So I'm reluctant to support this process. I know it's late, if it's not an action item, I won't. Even if it was an action item, I might not vote against it, but I certainly wouldn't vote for it.
And we can summarize your comments. I will summarize those comments at the board of directors meeting so we can speak to not being involved in the appointment process. I did see it on the agenda for the board of directors and I called it and brought it down for our discussion.
Yeah.
And asked for clarification to understand more about these candidates and understand the committee through the board of directors evaluated this.
We are an advisory committee.
I would think you would maybe look at the CAC as somebody we want to advise to bring on board to this advisory committee.
Right.
Logically.
Right. So that's my primary comment.
Perfect. Thank you.
I have a couple other comments that are not nearly as strong, but one is to support some sort of stipend to provide or some way of getting alternates to show up at the meetings to understand what's going on. Because as you said, stepping in, it's a very steep learning curve of what's going on and all that.
I think we deserve a master's in this kind of work. Just honorary since we are at Cal State East Bay here, so I figure I'm always coming to school to learn more about energy. And some of the best professors are the Clean Energy Alliance lead that is in the room.
The other thing, from reading through the item on the agenda, there was notices were sent out to CBOs. At some point, could you share that list? So, because there may be other organizations that we could recommend.
So sharing the CAC announcement to the members here so they have more
Well,
exposure.
we got that announcement, but I'm thinking the list of CBOs was greening the church on it, for example.
Yeah. On that CBO list, it's primarily kind of local sponsorship recipients that, or just CBOs that we've worked with in the past. So that's, all the inside. I can't speak to like specific CBOs, whether or not they were on the list, but that's primarily what that list consisted
Right.
of.
So, but it'd be good to see the list and maybe I might be able to suggest a few others that you could send it out to.
I think, because there'll be more opportunities to bring more, and we have 2 more vacancies, I think, for alternates. So there's more opportunity to evaluate as we continue the process to get engagement from the CAC as we help select our own per se, and then recommend those down the line. Sorry, please. Jim.
Yeah, so that was just one thing to include. And another one is the CAC appointment does not ensure the representation of labor and environmental justice organizations. And labor was a very strong element in the formation of EBCE back in the day. And there's no way, the at-large seats go away, but should there be some seats that are set aside for labor or for EJ organizations, separate from geographical? I mean, geographical representation is very good, but there's also sectoral representation that you want to make sure you cover that we should cover as well. So I don't expect, I'm not offering a solution, I'm just pointing out that we're missing key sectors that were very, very essential for the formation of the EBCE and are very active. I mean, there's the whole list of the organizations that presented the workforce and environmental justice project selection criteria. We should have seats that are at the CAC that are reserved for representatives of organizations like that.
Thank you for that feedback. I think, Kate, you want to speak to that further, or you're taking notes, I'm assuming?
Yes, I'm taking notes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Pacheco?
A couple comments, and I want to come back to some of the comments that were just made. But first of all, I was going to say, I recognize Richard Franco's name, and I'm glad to see that she's coming on board. She's an amazing, or she was an amazing sustainability manager. And also, I'm wondering procedurally, we've discussed this before, and it seems like there's general consensus. Getting alternatives to show up is a big deal, and we've discussed stipends before. Would tonight be a time to make a motion? Would it be appropriate to make a motion tonight? I'm happy to do that. That the board provide stipends to encourage the alternatives to attend.
I think you can make the motion, and we can look to have a second and discuss it, debate it further. It's up to you.
Okay.
To make.
Okay, then I will make, I'll make the motion. I would like to make a motion that the board provide stipends to alternatives with the point of encouraging their participation.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Member Laundrie. We're going to continue the discussion further. I see the hands are raised, and then we'll make a vote on that motion. So we'll continue the dialogue with the motion on the table. So, Anna Olivia, member, Eldred.
Thank you. If Annie is responding to that, then I'll go after her, and maybe Alex too. So, because it seems like staff has a response, and then I'll come back and make my comment.
Thank you, Member Eldred. I'll take Staff Henderson or Staff DiGiorgio, or staff, just whoever can take the floor. Annie? Alex?
Can't hear you, Alex.
Alex muted.
I see that Annie, I think, had her hand up before I did.
Okay. The gentleman too. Go for it. And we lost her.
Oh, okay.
Go for it.
You hit the wrong.
Then what I wanted to mention was just to remind folks that the selection of CAC members is done through appointment by the board per section 4.9 of the JPA. So that's not something that we can adjust without the board adjusting the joint powers agreement. Just for that context. And the board did fairly recently consider restructuring the CAC and ultimately decided not to restructure it. I think some of the concerns about reserving seats for certain constituency groups is that it kind of opens up the possibility for there being lots of groups that then feel unrepresented. So I just wanted to address that there, and also reiterate that this is an action item for our board. Obviously the committee can take whatever action it chooses, but this item was not intended to be an action item for the committee. Those are just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And I know that we're here as advisory, so we wouldn't be appointing anyone. We would only recommend or make a motion to move that forward if it was an action item. And just to clarify, I think I heard you say, Alex, this is not necessarily an action item for us, but it's something that maybe we can recommend in the future as feedback. Is that correct? Thank you.
I guess you're welcome to provide feedback, certainly.
Perfect. I see Annie Henderson back. Did you have a comment still? Or clarification when we lost you? We'll carry your comment to Wednesday then. Member Eldred.
All right, thank you. So I want to provide some clarification on what Alex just said. The board gave very clear direction that this body would be, after this round of appointments, would be making a recommendation on the restructuring. So if we had proposals for constituent groups and representation, that we definitely hear the concern about how to make sure that some groups don't feel represented, that kind of thing. There are several approaches that are taken that are currently utilized by other bodies, other Brown Act bodies, that are examples all over our region and other bodies that we're part of, like the Transportation Commission or BAFA or any of those things. They have advisory committees that have constituent group representation that is appropriate to their body. So we are supposed to be making recommendations to the board on how to approach that. That's been confirmed in multiple meetings. I would stress that I think it's important that bodies don't appoint themselves, but that we do have input on the process. I think there's a lot of legitimacy in seeing who are the other people who applied. And if there seems to be a pattern of exclusion or a political motivation for an appointment as opposed to something else, that would be an okay thing for us to comment on as far as process. But again, I really think that bodies shouldn't appoint themselves, or they become kind of weird and nepotistic. But as far as the process goes and what representation looks like and those kinds of things, that is something that we've been asked to respond to the board, and staff's request of the board which was approved, was that that process happens after this new round of appointments so that we can make sure to maintain quorum.
Thank you, Member Eldred. I think you're right about us being an advisory body, being able to provide that feedback, looking through the applicants, understanding what kind of feedback can we give. So as we work continuing to appoint new members to the CAC, or at least recommend for appointment, even their alternates, it would be nice to see the applicants. Of course, with the information that's personally identifiable, where they live, their address, other than their city, and the other information you might want to strike, but make it be able to be part of the public record so we can see that information. And then we can discern, these would be good recommended members of alternates for the board for its consideration. Maybe there's 21, and we say these are the top 10 for these 5 seats and give them some options, or this is why we rated them the way we are, rated them as a matrix scale for consideration. So as this advisory committee forms and brings members to itself, I think it would be nice to give that feedback so the board can itself then discern their choices, because this is what our purpose is, to advise the board of directors. So I think as
Chair,
we continue forward, we move forward in that process.
Chair, I'm very sorry, just as clarification, I absolutely do not think we should be recommending individual members. So that was, it's okay to have differing opinions, but that was not what I was saying. I was saying the process is something that we should have, and applicants should be public. But just to clarify that point.
And that's just, if we can just open that up for a second. So when we would have 21 members or applicants, excuse me, and then we can look at the approach, like either the process or the weighting or the scaling to recommend or identify maybe these are ideal candidates that fit maybe the interests of the advisory committee as advisors to the board. Would not that be something that aligns with this advisory committee or Member Eldred?
So my personal opinion, as I am not chair, my personal opinion is that bodies should not appoint themselves. So I do think that the name of applicant should be public, as well as the board selection. These are public positions. If people are running for another body, their name appears on a ballot or whatever it is. This is not something where board members appoint a representative of their own that doesn't go through an application process. This is something that is applied to, it's a public body. And so that while I think that list should be public, I believe that as a CAC, there may even be some guidelines around it that we do not recommend individuals, but we absolutely can say things like, we went to the board and wanted to make sure that it was the board doing the selection, and that the board saw the full list of names. In that the board sees the full list of names, I do think that full list should be public, and that we can make strong recommendations about making sure there is representatives from labor or ratepayers or whatever other constituent group we as a body decide is important to bring as a recommendation to the board. As far as the individuals that fulfill those roles, I really don't think that we should be making comment on the individuals. And I do think there's a lot of precedence around that. Just like the board doesn't appoint itself, each city chooses the member that is going to represent them. Is that more clear?
It is more clear, more the characteristics, the elements of it, and that's really the individual, but more what we're looking to balance.
Yes.
The advisory committee too. Perfect. Thank you very much for that clarification. We do have a motion on the table. We have a second regarding stipends for CAC members regarding the appointment process. If it's in order, any other comment, we can take a roll call vote. Sure. Or do you have a comment?
Have we done public comment?
We have not.
Thank you. Public comment? Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, thank you. Jessica Tovar, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. I agree that this should be kind of an open process. We should be able to see who has applied. And then I also think that initially what we were advocating for was that folks represent different constituencies, and I think the constituencies were social justice, labor, faith-based, clean energy, business. I might be missing some. It seems like that's what it was, like an intersection. And that's off the top of my head, but, and then they added like low-income ratepayer at some point. Everybody's a ratepayer. Everybody pays bills here, but, so there was that, the different intersections of representation. And then I think the geographic part came in later, obviously, for, out of necessity. But I do think also for people who weren't accepted into the CAC this time, there should be kind of like a, we're going to put your application on a wait list, because these positions seem to open unexpectedly. People have to leave, conflict of interest, new job, whatever, that happens. And so instead of, you know, I don't know what the people were told, if they were just, hey, you weren't included this time, good luck next time, whatever. But it'd be good to have kind of a waiting list and let people know as it opens up, because I did hear, Jim, you say there's like a learning curve. There's like a serious learning curve with the type of information that is dealt with here at the Energy Agency that everybody struggles with, including board members. So I think it's in the best interest to have people ready to come in and people to sit in, and even if it means virtually for alternates, like, you know, kind of arrange that way so it's a little more accessible, or, you know, somebody has an emergency, they can just toggle online and join the meeting, kind of a thing. I think that's it, but yeah, I want to encourage more of an open process, and really, in the way that the board has stepped into their power, I want to see the Community Advisory Committee do the same, step into the power that you have here, into making this a very strong advisory body. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a good conversation. Kate, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of speak on a couple of those comments. So yeah, when it comes to kind of hanging on to applications from previous cycles and then reaching from those applicants for a vacant position that opens up down the road, we do have to like do a whole new application period. We can't really just pick from a previous application pool. We have to do the application kind of open again. So that would definitely be a much more streamlined process, but we have to do the application period again. We can't just pick from previous applications that have been completed.
I think that would be more of a matter of policy for the board to consider making the streamline where you have a bench. I serve on a different board and we keep applicants on file for at least a year or two. So that when a new opportunity, new vacancy occurs, we reach out to them, but still go through our process to recruit new members. So we have not only those who have shown interest in the pool versus new ones who want to jump into it. So I think that's for maybe a process that can be defined further with policy and recommendation. I see Ana Olivia, please, your hand is raised.
I'm so sorry.
No worries.
But the way that under the current structure, the way that that would work, our staff member is correct, but it would be an easy part of the recommendation if our chair and vice chair wish to bring it forward. And hopefully, since we'll be getting those appointments next month, then we can begin those conversations and start working on that. All you would have to do is set up a bank, and that would mean that the official appointment happens at, you know, biannually, which is what the board recommended. But if there was a bank, that is something that this body could discuss. Probably not part of tonight's discussion. That would be part of the discussion around what does the CAC appointment process look like? What do we want our representation to look like? Do we have goals around representation that are allowed under Prop 209? That kind of thing. But you could easily adopt something where there was a bank of candidates like they do with other applicant pools, where applications received by a certain date can be considered, but no new applicants would be considered until the process reopened. So there is precedent for that. That also exists in other bodies. I'd be happy to, at some point, talk with anyone about what that structure looks like.
Thank you, Member Eldred. With that, no other hands are raised. We'll take our motion for roll call vote.
Thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Eldred,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan,
Yes.
Member Pacheco,
Yes.
Member Carr,
Yes.
Member Lutz.
This is for the stipends for the
Yes.
alternates.
Yes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes. Did we forget anybody? No, we got everybody. Motion passes.
Right, yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the robust discussion on the item. We thought it would be brief, but it's good to get some dialogue and feedback. Thank you. Item number 7, the legislative update, informational item as well. Who's speaking to the item?
I'll speak to the item. This is Alec Ward here.
Thank you, Alec.
Great. Thank you all for having me. I can make this pretty quick. I'm the principal legislative manager at AVA, and with me is Feby Bodiarto. She's a regulatory analyst. And you can jump to the next slide, please. And I'm going to give a quick rundown of all the bills we're tracking right now. As you can see, we just passed bill introduction. It ended February 16th. So right now, bills are still actively being amended and changed in very meaningful ways. So we're still getting a sense of all the bills out there. There's over 1,000 this year, and there's about 70 that are relevant to our positions. But in front of you here will be just a handful that we're tracking most closely. But this is an informational item. We're not recommending any positions just yet, but we will be in front of the board and within the next month or so to put bill positions forward. By then, we'll have a better idea of what's really in play. But you can see the legislative year goes all the way till the governor has September 30th to sign and veto bills. Last day to pass is August 31st. Next slide, please. So yeah, a number of bills. So I'll run through these pretty quickly. I grouped them by different topic. So we have affordability bills. Many of these are focused around income graduated fixed charges, which the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, is right now determining which fixed charge it will put forward. I think a lot of people are holding off until they see what that proposal should be, and that'll be about in the next within the next month. But still, there are some bills. I think one or two of these actually just got pulled. But we do have AB 1999, Irwin. This will repeal the setting of the income graduated fixed charge and cap them to their previous caps, which was $5 for care and fair customers and $10 for non-care and fair customers. The AB 2805 will repeal income graduated fixed charge legislation. SB 1130 from Bradford will expand FARA program eligibility for households, eliminating the requirement that a household has to have 3 or more persons in it. SB 1292 is a Bradford bill. It orders the PUC to report to the IGFC on senior report to the legislature on IGFC adoptions by 2027. SB 1312 repeals the income graduated fixed charge legislation, and SB 1326 also repeals that and caps fixed charges at $10 per resident and $5 for care and fair resident. So there's a lot of intermingle and similar bills here. They'll get sorted out. Next one, the Brown Act AB 817 for Pacheco would allow members of the subsidiary body of the CCAs, including the CAC here, to call in remotely if the quorum is met in a physical location. They won't have to do the reporting of their location. So there'll be new flexibility there, but it wouldn't apply to any decision-making body, including the regular board. Next slide, please.
If I can interrupt there. I think that's an important one.
Yes. Yeah.
Body. I think when I read through it, I thought, oh, this is very important. So just understanding when we can be remote or not remote. I think, can you expand upon that? Like, does it mean that you have to have a quorum here present, or can everybody be remote, or have one person Just to clarify on that if we can.
Yeah, I believe it's quorum in the room there has to be met, and then anyone else remote can be remote, but they don't have to disclose their location.
And I guess to Adrian, our quorum to be in the room without having to disclose, how many members are we going to have after Wednesday if they recommend those? I think we'll have more than, I forget the count. I mean, I know there's 4 of us here.
So you're talking alternates and?
I think so. The quorum, what's our recommended number of folks that we have for the CAC? Is it 12 or 12 total seats? So we have to have 6 people here, and then others could be remote. And so if they didn't disclose and they were able to sort of notify individuals, they still could participate in the meeting. Is that what I'm reading? If we have 12 members, 6 would have to be present.
Yes.
Or at least recorded the state of presence where they sort of notified at a minimum, and then anybody said, oh, I didn't provide this, I have a change, non-emergency, they can still participate in the call and without disclosing their location.
Yes.
Okay.
And I apologize, I actually misanswered the last question. I think the amendment actually recently went through that would remove the necessity for a quorum in person. So I think anyone would be able to participate remote without disclosing, no need for a physical quorum. So I think it's actually even more flexible. That might change in the coming months, though.
That'll be interesting and maybe beneficial for further discussion for this body, see how that would impact us. So thank you.
Yes, yeah, you'll definitely see this in front of you again in the next month or so when we come back.
Thank you. Go ahead, continue, please. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you for the question. Next slide, please.
Alex, can you hold on one second? My apologies. I have members, so Ms. Khan had his hand raised, so I let him speak for a second.
Oh, sure.
Member?
Thank you, Chairman. Alec, the AB 205, what is the impetus for us it to be repealed? What is causing it to be repealed? I thought it was on track to proceed.
Yeah, AB 205 was a budget bill that passed 2 years ago. And hidden within that long budget bill was a provision that said the PUC had to create an income graduated fixed charge. So these bills are all trying to undo that mandate, or a number of them are.
Who is in support of that?
Who's in support of those bills? I think a fair number of legislative offices are feeling pressured by some constituents that are calling in due to the raising bills, especially recently with PG&E that we've seen in January.
What is Ava Community Energy's position on this?
We don't have a position yet. We'll recommend positions the next month or so to the board, but we have been doing some analysis to see what our customer bill impacts will be, but that still hasn't been finalized yet. But I think we're sharing it pretty soon.
Okay, thank you.
Continue, Alex.
All right, next slide, please. So this is kind of a placeholder here. The 2 bonds, we have AB 1567 from Garcia and SB 867. These are clean energy bonds that were proposed last year for $2 billion. They did not continue moving forward, so they were held, but there still is debate amongst the Senate and the Assembly to pass some form of clean energy bonds. For building decarbonization, we have SB 1054 Rubio. This would establish the Climate Pollution Reduction in Homes Initiative, which would award some providers to help with financial assistance to low-income households for zero-emitting household appliances. We have SB 1093 Becker. This would help streamline the transition from gas to zero-emitting appliances for mobile homes, for manufactured homes, and it would update some state housing standards to help these installation adoptions occur. SB 1210, this is a Skinner bill. Senator Skinner is in our district. This would cap the charge that utilities can put on new housing units for their interconnection. And it also prioritizes housing and interconnection queues as there's currently a backlog. With energy, electric vehicles, EVs, we have AB 2427 McCarty. This would order GoBiz to create a bunch of checklists, best practices, list of just many different items and organizationals to help local governments permit curbside charging stations. AB 2453 via Poudois. Via Poudois is also, his district is in Ava territory. This would authorize the use of an instrument measuring electricity transferred for an EV. SB 233, Senator Skinner. also in our district. This is a bill that's been amended. It was a play last year, but it's still currently active. It would require the CEC, CARB, and the PUC to convene a working group that would help deploy and set standards for electric vehicle chargers to have bidirectional capabilities. Next slide, please. For renewable energies, we have AB 2256 Friedman. This would order the PUC to develop a new NEM tariff starting in 2026 to ensure that we're hitting our state goals. AB 2619 Connolly is the same bill, essentially, to order PUC to develop a new NEM tariff. SB 1305 Stern would require the PUC to order procurement, including for the CCAs for virtual power plants to meet resource adequacy requirements, and it has a step down of capacity and timelines. Transmission, AB 2940, these are transmission bills, is Moritsuchi. This would define transmission as an energy leadership development project, allowing for a streamlined environmental review. SB 1006 Padilla, this requires the PUC to make sure the state's on track to hitting our transmission and our capacity goals. SB 1311 Stern would order the PUC and the CEC to report on the timelines for how they're hitting the transmission and grid capacity needs and their expected timelines and completion dates. And it also has a segment that would require the CEC forecast that they incorporate weather variability. Next slide, please. And I believe this is the last one. Utility specific, AB 2054. This is Assembly Member Barry Cahan, also in Ava's district territory. This would forbid any commissioner from the PUC or from the CEC from being employed by entity that it regulates. So that would include IOUs and CCAs for a period of 10 years after they have served. SB 938 MIN would prohibit all political lobbying by IOUs and saying, or excuse me, it would prohibit the IOUs from charging ratepayers for political lobbying or political influence activity. SB 993 Becker is the PUC must evaluate and establish a clean energy development incentive if it's reasonable for the IOUs for new, that the IOUs must establish this and that it's for new commercial and industrial electrical load. They have to do that by 2026. All right, I believe that's all the bills.
Thank you very much, our tax
Right.
dollars at work. Vice Chair Souza.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to clarify on SB 233. I'm sorry. Yes, the bidirectional. The bidirectional charging. Does that mean that a car can be used to charge a home, or is that what bidirectional means?
Believe it would be so that it could be that the energy from a car can be used in the home or on the grid, but I would ask Febby or if we have any EV experts who might know better on the call.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, this is Todd. I'll take that one because it actually is a segue into the next item. Oh, okay. I was answering the question. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was answering the question that the other person was asking. When we're talking about bidirectional charging, we are talking about using the battery in a car as either a battery for on-site load or for grid support services. So this is often lumped under the acronym V2G, vehicle to grid. And that is one of the pilots that's in play on the next item. So we'll kind of get to it there, but that's what this is talking about. Thanks. Sorry, Member Landry.
Was that it for Member Souza?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Member Landry.
That you're going to the next item. So in our local, there has been.
Can you please speak into the microphone?
Yes, thank you. You're still here. In our local, there's been a lot of discussion supporting AB 1999, and I would hope that, of course, I'm just one person here, but that we consider supporting that legislation because This apparently, there's a new utility tax, I guess that's from AB 205. That's proposed by the utilities would increase monthly bills for millions of seniors, people with disabilities, and working and middle-class Californians. It would harm conservation. This is a position, and local clean energy. So the utilities and some other organizations have proposed the highest utility tax in the country to be levied on the vast majority of residential customers, between $30 and $70 per month. So let me repeat, $30 to $70 per month. Even a 30-month utility tax is 3 times the national average and would increase utility bills on millions of seniors, people with disabilities, the working and middle-class households, and of course, the low-income and our public assistance recipients. The utility tax was created by a little-known provision included in the budget trailer bill passed by the California legislature last year, AB 205, mandating a new monthly fixed charge, AKA utility tax, on all investor-owned utility residential customers. AB 205 was passed without any public hearings or discussions. The utility tax is completely uncapped with unlimited potential to grow. So I would really urge that that Ava really look at this bill as it develops, and look at the impacts of the bill to our vulnerable seniors, low-income households, the middle and the working class. Thank you.
Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Thank you.
I'm going to see if there's any other comments from the members. Now we'll look to see public comment, if any.
There are no hands raised for public comment.
This was informational, correct? Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, and I know we're getting late in the evening. I know we started a little late, so we'll try to get through the items and continue, and I think we may have to return to one item. But we'll talk through item 7, item 8, load management standards compliance.
Yeah, because I know exactly what everybody wants to get into at 823 is 40 pages single-spaced on real-time pricing. Obviously, a lot to go through there. Let me sort of unpack it, lay it out at a high level, talk a little bit about process going forward, and then we can see if folks want to dive down any particular rabbit holes. So by way of introduction, I'm Todd Edminster. For those of you who we haven't met, I'm the director of the public policy group here at AVA, as well as the deputy general counsel, one of the 2 lawyers, 3 now, who work at AVA. And the reason that this rate conversation is coming to you via me, rather than say the marketing folks, is because this is a plan that we are obliged to submit in response to a California Energy Commission directive, set of regulations that they promulgated last year, called the Load Management Standards, or LMS. Unfortunately, in my corner of the universe, we're very acronym heavy. I may slip into jargon, in which case feel free to throw something at me gently, please, and I will try and speak English. But the thrust of this is about the CEC's LMS, the California Energy Commission's Load Management Standards. The California Energy Commission has had load management standards in place since its inception back in 1975. It revisited them approximately a year ago to add 4 distinct elements to the existing regulatory structure. And those 4 elements are: first, a requirement that all load serving entities, or LSEs, of which CCAs, including AVA, are an example, that all LSEs develop and offer to customers at least one retail electricity rate that changes at least hourly. Okay. Second, that all LSEs, including AVA, provide and update hourly and time varying rates in the CEC's Market Informed Demand Automation Server. I'm going to throw another acronym at you, MIDAS. Okay, so we have to, whenever we have a time variant rate, we have to tell the CEC about it in a very particular way. Third, we have to develop a standard tool to support third-party services access to rate information for customers. Okay, this is known in the parlance here as the statewide tool. And then finally, integrate information about time-dependent rates and automation technologies into existing customer education and outreach programs. So these were the substantive amendments to the LMS standards that the CEC first pitched out back in 2022 and adopted in 2023. Where this hits the ground for us is that within the regulations that the CEC adopted, it required that, and I'll quote here, within 1 year of April 1st, 2023, i.e. April 1st, 2024, or approximately 2 weeks from now, each large CCA, that would be us, shall submit a compliance plan that is consistent with, there's a citation of the Code of Regs here, which I'll spare you, to its rate approving body, that's the board, for adoption in a duly noticed public meeting to be held within 60 days after the plan is submitted. So the upshot of all that is that by April 1st, we staff had to give to the board a compliance plan that goes through in chapter and verse how we were going to comply with this set of standards, i.e. that will meet the 4 elements that I just outlined for you. And so that is what this 40 pages of single-spaced does. And just to go back to it again, 4 things, okay? Develop and offer to customers at least one retail electricity rate that changes hourly. So this is real-time pricing. Provide an update hourly and time varying rates to the CEC's MIDAS database. That's an information exchange obligation. Third, develop the statewide tool. And then fourth, integrate information about these time-dependent rates and automation technologies into our customer education and outreach. And so if you go through the plan, and Adrian, I wonder if we might pull up the plan. I see we've got the memo up there that has the regulatory language. If we could switch to that for a moment. That's the attachment to the resolution. It's item B on the agenda. There you go. Thank you. I will spare you for now at least a page turn, although happy to go into this in more detail. You'll see that this roughly corresponds to the 4 items that we have in play there. Much of this is a recount of recent history, and I want to give a hat tip to my colleague, Michael Quiros, who is on the phone here to bail me out if I step into anything untoward, but who has also herded all of the cats internally within AVA to pull together this magnum opus, and is also the Cal CCA lead on the LMS compliance Tiger team, and has been dealing directly with the CEC staff around the implementation of these new regulations on behalf of CCA statewide. So if we kind of fast forward through the things that we have done, which are extensive and impressive, but again, largely historical, the area where we are really looking for input from the board, guidance on a policy direction, is around how we will implement the first of these bullets that I mentioned earlier: develop and offer to customers at least one retail electricity rate that changes at least hourly. The proposal that is set forth in this plan, and if we could skip forward within the document there, Adrian, to table 4, which you will find on page, bear with me here. Here we are, right, page 18. Yeah. Yeah, it's page 18 of the PDF. While you're scrolling through that, let me kind of level set for a sec. The underlying theory behind real-time rates is premised on the fact that energy prices change minute by minute, and more pertinently, they are posted on an hourly basis by the California Independent System Operator, which is the grid operator with hourly aggregated prices for different locations. So electricity prices change by location, where you are, they change by time, when you're using. They change quite substantially. So energy can be way more expensive, say, in the shoulder hours when all of the intermittent resources are going away, the sun is setting, the wind is stopped, is no longer blowing, and expensive peaker plants are coming online, as compared to, say, the middle of the day when all the intermittent resources are doing their thing and the more expensive peaking resources are offline. So the thought here is to create a rate structure that recognizes the differential in costs, both A, to impose the costs on those who are imposing the costs on the system, it's colloquially called cost causation, but also to try and shift behavior and to move load from the expensive hours to the less expensive hours. So the concept here is, hey, let's have a pricing structure that will accurately reflect the underlying wholesale costs of providing the electricity to the people who are using it within a given hour. And let's base it on the prices a day ahead so that people can change their behavior or know far enough ahead of time what the prices are going to look like so they can change their behavior, as opposed to just getting smacked with a huge bill afterwards. See e.g. Texas 2 years ago. So the proposal here is to learn more about how this works. And there's a lot in here. We've done a not comprehensive but extensive literature review to kind of learn what lessons we can from those who have implemented these rates already elsewhere. Notably, Spain just went ahead and imposed real-time rates on everybody back in 2015. Texas, of course, had people out there offering real-time price offerings within their deregulated retail market structure, et cetera, et cetera. So there are places that have already done this to some degree or another, and we can learn lessons from that. And our major takeaway is that it's not entirely clear just how beneficial these rate structures are going to be. That how beneficial they are depends in large part on what your use looks like, what your use cases are, and how the rate is implemented. And these rates come in lots of different flavors. So before we jump in with both feet, or whether we jump in with both feet at all, we want to learn more about how this is going to work for our customers. And so the proposal in here is to have, well, the actual ask in the resolution is to have the board delegate authority to the staff to participate in some or all of the pilots that you see listed here. It's a may, not a must, because frankly, all of this is in flux right now, and we really don't want to be tied to things that are likely to change. And we would also like the flexibility to do additional analysis on this and then have some optionality on whether we do participate in all of these, or just some of them, or potentially none of them. As I was alluding to earlier, the reason talking to me about this rather than marketing is that this is a regulatory-driven initiative. This is not necessarily something that customers have been pounding our doors on demanding. And so I would say that we have received customer interest in, apropos of our earlier conversation, the V2G pilot. So if you see there in the center column, vehicle grade integration, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth column from the left. That is a pilot that is supposed to begin as early as September of this year. We have heard interest from customers in our participating in it to facilitate PG&E service area wide availability of the pilot. Relatedly, if you look at the first column, the DAHRTP-BEV, which stands for Day Ahead Hourly Real-Time Pricing Battery Electric Vehicle, or the DARTIP BEV pilot, is also something for which we've received some customer interest. The balance of these, not so much. In addition, they've slipped not insignificantly from when they were originally proposed. So again, the question before you is kind of, can we have, as staff, authority to participate in these when and if they are finalized, but not an obligation to do so. So let me stop there. A lot to unpack, but that is the thrust of the ask. The procedural note, actually, before I stop, the procedural note. So because the regulations required that we place this before you by April 1st, it is now before the board for a vote, but the board need not act for another 60 days from when they received it. So while it's up as a voting item, the board is certainly welcome to continue this for further consideration or deliberation to to the April meeting before voting on it. I realize that it is a lot and there's not been a lot of time to digest it, but if the board wishes to vote, it can, otherwise it can roll it over to April. And we will still be compliant with the regulations calendar. Okay, I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the committee's consideration to maybe look at this, for the board may also choose to vote or table it for another day. Based on these pilots that are out there, based on these new standards, these items to be discussed and reviewed, it's a lot of heavy regulatory information, but not necessarily marketing driven. That's what I got. So thank you very much for that concise and very detailed explanation.
Yeah, I will note that, I mean, things excite strange passions in the energy sector, and there are some people who are very strong views around real-time pricing, positive and negative. So in part, this is kind of staff taking the temperature of the board and see if there are any people who do feel strongly about this.
Thank you. Like I said, it's like a PhD when you get into this room. Vice Chair Souza.
That was a great presentation, and I never thought I could understand a lawyer speak, but you made a very good presentation. I just really quickly, I just want to understand what the difference is. I understand what they call time of use from PG&E. Does this have anything to do with that? Is it similar to that? Can we
Well, it's not.
clarify that?
Yeah, so I think you're referring to the critical peak pricing program. Is that what you're thinking of?
No, the peak price, right now, there's peaks at 4 to 9.
Oh, TOU. Okay,
Yeah.
time of use. Yeah. So, so time of use is a way at getting at the same concept that sort of as a policy matter, usage should align with pricing, and you want to shift pricing to the less expensive hours versus the more expensive hour, or shift usage to the less expensive rather than more expensive hours. And so this is just a much more granular flavor of time of use. So yeah, this is like it's second cousin, if you will. It's just much more granular and can be much peakier. What's that?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Hourly,
Yes.
with no notice.
Well, the notice would be day ahead. So if we look at, again, back to table 4, right, with the DAR tip, the EV, so the DA and the DH are TP. DA stands for day ahead. So the pricing would be based on the bids that were coming in the day before. Now, you might see a different actual price the following day. That delta would have to be picked up through some other rate mechanism. It wouldn't fall on the consumer.
Members who have made it down.
Hi. So the day ahead hourly price what is that based on Cal ISO prices? How is that going to be determined?
That's based on Cal ISO prices, yes.
Would it be scaled to some level? It won't be the actual price, it will be scaled, correct?
I'm not following what you mean by scale. The price would be a per megawatt hour, which would be converted into kilowatt hours, but I don't think that's quite what you're driving at.
But would it be the same? Shouldn't it be revenue neutral?
It would probably be the same. So there is some nuance here around whether / how we would integrate our value proposition into this, and also recovery of administrative costs. So there's some nuance there, but the basic idea is it's a straight flow through of whatever the Cal ISO says the day ahead price is. So if it's, if you go on their Oasis database right now, they've got a kind of a stock ticker down at the bottom, and it would be whatever that number is for the relevant load aggregation point.
Okay, so we'd adopt the same as PG&E's?
Well, again, with the caveat that we need to figure out whether / how our value proposition would integrate with the day ahead real time pricing. But structurally, yeah, the idea is we would be doing more or less the same as PG&E.
Okay, thank you.
Which is going to be the Cal ISO.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm actually torn on this one. My day job, even though I'm retired, but I still participate, is energy use and focused on hot water. And as we electrify water heaters in California, which are gas, they become a potential tool to do this load shifting. Because you don't have to use the water, you don't have to heat the water when you use it unless you have a tankless water heater, which you wouldn't have for electric tank type water heater. It would be a tank type water heater, not a tankless. So you could heat the water in the day when the electricity is cheap and use it, whereas most of the hot water in a house is used in the evening or in the morning. You could heat the water for the evening use during the day when electricity is cheap and solar is plentiful. You could heat the water for the morning use at night when electricity is cheap. So conceptually, I strongly support this idea, but then there's the experience of what happened in Texas a few years back that, where people got screwed royally when the ice storm hit. Then there was the references that you cite in the document seem to be relatively old, like 2004, 2011, and I suspect there's much more recent data on that.
Yeah, I would encourage you to, oh, sorry.
I'll talk to you afterwards, and I can give you contact information at my prior workplace where people are very interested in this and have been doing work recently. And there's also CAC Energy Commission reports on this sort of stuff as well. So, and you sort of glossed over that in the report there was mentioning that the savings would be directly passed through to the participating customers, but it seems like to manage and operate it from an Ava community energy point of view, there would have to be some markup or, cut of the savings that they were getting so that there would be a funding stream for Ava staff to handle this and manage it. So I'm not as strongly against it as the staff seem to be, but I do understand the concern. So I would like the staff to consider perhaps somehow, if it's a day ahead price and there's standards for technologies and interfaces that do this sort of thing for water heaters. They've been adopted. There's a CPA 2045, an EcoPort, which is a device that you can hook up to an electric water heater that the utility or the CCA could use as a load modifying tool by asking people, in essence, asking people's water heaters to charge when there's electricity is cheap and not charge when it's more expensive. So I understand that this is way too rushed and way too fast for Ava to just completely adopt and say, yeah, we'll do it tomorrow, sort of thing. And there is concern with all this wheeling and dealing and price gouging that, That's how we got CCAs in the first place. Enron bankrupted PG&E.
Do we have a question there for staff, or we're getting late?
Just, I think there's more opportunity here than is presented in the item.
Thank you. I would like to see if there's any public comment before we close, or another member. Pacheco?
Can you speak to whether or not the shape of this plan in any particular details varies from what we're trying to get our community customers to do as opposed to PG&E? Are we doing anything different in trying to shape their usage or offer them anything than the IOU is?
On the rate side, no, not on the rate side. On the sort of the things side, so like the water heater thing that Member Lutz was alluding to, yeah, we do have some distinct programs there. And if you dig into the document, you can see some of those down in the discussion under, well, there's a resilient home, critical municipal facilities, perhaps most pertinent, the DERMS and residential managed EV charging, capacity-based battery incentive program, and then there's a catch-all evolution of new programs. So again, on the rates, the idea would be consistent with our policy on rates throughout our rate structure to essentially mirror PG&E. But on the demand side, getting into JP's turf a little bit here, we have a variety of unique offerings.
I know we have some great programs. I was unclear whether or not just the actual rates for our generic products differed from the IOUs to try to shape anything. The other question is the systems for reporting. Is there anything new on that? Or we have any new gizmos or protocols for providing and getting to the community?
Well, we will. So we have been providing information to the CEC for upload into the MIDAS database since, Michael can correct me on this, but I think since the summer. I'll be vague about it. But I don't know that there's anyone who's actually using it now. The statewide tool is not yet up and running, but will be at some point. It's a little bit vague on exactly when. So to the extent that anybody can access MIDAS yet, then yes, that is up there and has our information in it.
Thank you.
Any public comment?
There are no hands raised. Oh, there's one hand raised. Steve Scala, recognized for 3 minutes.
Can we do 2?
2 minutes.
Thank you. Great, thank you. Steve?
Thank you, Steve Scala. I'm a resident of Fremont. So recently, Fremont had a discussion in the Sustainability Commission with Ava present, discussing moving to default renewable 100. And part of the discussion was what's the renewable 100 surcharge being used for in terms of costs? And the general answer from Ava is that you have high costs during peak loads, especially at the evening when there's no sun or wind, and that's why the renewable 100 rate is higher than the PG&E rate. One way you can address that is by load shifting, and that's the purpose of the discussion you just had. I would say that Ava in PG&E is behind because Southern California, Edison offers a super off-peak rate between 8 and 3 p.m. when, of course, there's ample low-cost solar electricity. With the discussion you just had, and your report says that most users don't like dynamic pricing because it's rather complex and uncertainties and prefer time of use pricing. I would say I agree with that. So what I would encourage you to do is to look very critically and carefully to enable load shifting, but do so in a way that is easy, preferably with time of use pricing, or also, like you just discussed, by programs that will allow Ava to take control of major electric appliances like heat pumps, batteries, car charging, and offer an economic incentive to do that. So those are my comments. Thank you. And I do think this is an important discussion to have, how to improve load shifting and economic benefits associated with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your concise comments. Really appreciate it. Any other comments from the committee? We understand we can continue the item to another meeting. If that's the will of this committee, we can do that unless there's a motion. What's this? No motion. All right, so we'll continue the item with any other motions. All right, no motion. So thank you very much for that information. We'll continue the item until maybe next meeting for further discussion.
Well, I would note it's going to be up to the board to decide whether they want to continue.
Exactly.
So you may want to move that you recommend to the board to continue it, or see what they do.
So the request is to move to recommend that we continue it to the board?
If that's the recommendation that you want to make, or you can say, well, we'll let the board vote on it. I mean, it's kind of up to you guys, but I just want to be clear, it's not guaranteed to be continued. The board may choose to
No,
vote
of
on it.
course, if they didn't
Okay.
come back, then it would, of course, would be moved from this committee, correct? You're right, good point. So do you want to encourage the board to continue dialogue, or just really, bring it after a certain time? So I guess the idea is to make a motion to have the board continue the item to a subsequent date. Ultimately, they can choose to just vote on it that evening. It's really up to them, of course, or no motion at all.
I think I
So-
like the idea.
1 second, Chair, Member Lutz has the floor, then we'll go to Member Eldred. Yes.
I like the idea of making a motion to have the board consider continuing and I guess they have,
Continue the item.
is there a time frame that you would recommend?
Yeah, they need to make a decision on it by the April, or at no later than the April meeting, so they can kick it one meeting and still be compliant.
Okay. All right. That's your motion.
Yeah.
To continue the item so they can have further discussion around the programming. I saw Member Eldred speaking. Does she want to second it, or does somebody else want to?
I would ask for the amendment that you summarize comments. So in the case that they don't continue the thing, so we can have a discussion around it, then that the information that's come up is still transmitted.
Received. Thank you. Member Souza.
Yeah, I agree with Member Eldred. I think that a lot of good information has come out, especially some of the last comments about improving load shifting. Maybe we can type something up and present it to the board just in case they do make a vote. And then if they don't, we can continue the conversation. Thank you.
I think I'm hearing to make sure that we're summarizing the comments at a minimum. Understood. Member Landry.
Yes, I'd like to second Member Lutz's motion.
Thank you very much. And then just to clarify with Member Eldred, it's this adding in, is this just separate in regards to summarizing the comments, not with the motion? Just to understand that distinction.
I find it at least somewhat likely that the board is going to vote on the item in front of them as it is an action item for them. So while we can say, hey, there's some good discussion come up, we think that it deserves further comment, it may also be very useful to both in the annotated agenda and in whatever comments are made to make sure to summarize the points that have come up so that either they hear the reason to have that extension, or at least they receive some of that feedback, and maybe it can help spur some of their own questions. I would not vote to just say further it without a really good summary of what our discussion was.
Thank you, and I know Vice Chair Souza's helping me with those notes now. Thank you. Any other comments? Public comments?
In any boring meeting, and I don't know why.
That's fine. Member Carr?
Yes,
I heard you go off mic. Do you have some comments? Are you okay?
I'm okay. No comments.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Member Carr. With that, no further comments. We can take a roll call vote on the motion to request that the board do continue the dialogue to the April meeting. However, I will summarize the comments from this meeting being prepared by Vice Chair Souza and added to the annotated agenda for the Wednesday meeting. We'll take the roll call vote.
Great, thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Eldred,
Abstain.
Member Swaminathan,
Yes.
Member Pacheco,
Yes.
Member Carr,
Yes.
Member Lewis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Eldred. Excuse me, Chair.
You've done that for
That
like
was
6
habit.
years, so Chair, yes. I'm happy to give the chair back to you. Here's the gavel if you'd like it back. No, I'm kidding. Yes, yes is the answer.
Thank you. Motion's
Thank you. I know we're getting late, so are we going to get kicked out of the room at some point? What's our procedures? Because I know we have a couple more items at least.
we asked the room if they would like to continue.
Okay, so do we need a 5-minute break or do you want to
Oh,
just,
yeah.
no, do we need a break or anything? Or do we just want to, we'll take a 5-minute break, just real fast. So I think we can continue this evening. Is there any objection to continuing? We have the item for the default policy change, update, any kind of member or staff announcements, and then think we may want to circle back on one item, a special request to discuss again the CAC appointments. We might have missed something there is what I'm being told. So if we take a quick 5-minute break, we'll come back. That's okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll pause the recording. We'll come back. Thank you.
That's good.
Let's see, default policy change, policy update. So I think if we can understand what that item's about, I think policy is important to discuss and review. If we can look at that item, and that'll be great to see what that looks like. So I think staff will be presenting more information about this policy update.
Hold on.
Yes, good evening, Chair. I'm here to present.
Thank you.
Alex
Please
Giorgio,
proceed. Good evening.
Senior Public Engagement Manager.
You have the floor.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I realize, given the late hour, I will try to be as brief as I can. We are proposing some straightforward amendments to this policy. And again, oh, thank you, Adrian, for bringing up the slides. If you wouldn't mind going to the first slide, that'd be great. Thank you. Just to remind folks the context here, so this is the policy by which about half of our member jurisdictions have used to implement citywide defaults to our Renewable 100 option. So I know that it's got a kind of an odd name here, this policy, default rate product change policy, but this has really been the policy that's been used for implementing those citywide opt-ups. And the jurisdictions that have done so are listed there on the slide. It's about 7 jurisdictions in total. And in case it's not clear, from the previous times that we've discussed those opt-ups and this policy, the real purpose behind the policy is for our agency to be able to be responsive to requests from our member jurisdictions to change their default options, whether it's for some customers or all customers, and then to give our staff time to prepare and procure the energy for those changes and to do the requisite outreach so that the public is aware of those changes. So under the current policy, there have been 2 options in terms of timing, and that's what we're proposing to change here, is really just the timing of the approval of the requests and the implementation. So to date, the policy has had 2 timelines by which our board can approve requests and then our staff implements those requests. And Adrian, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, that'd be great, because that will show what we're proposing. The proposed amendment is to have 1 timeline per year. And that would be having our board approve requests for default rate product changes from our member jurisdictions, have those approved by May, and then implemented in March of the following year. And the reasons behind this change are to streamline the process, make it more efficient, both for our power resources team, which has to procure the energy, and then also for our marketing account services team, which is tasked with doing that outreach that I mentioned before, sending out public notices, making sure everyone's aware of the change to their default rate, and then their options, which would include other options from AVA. And I will stop there because that's really the gist of it.
Thank you very much, Alex, for understanding the staff recommendation proposals to move from 2 periods to 1 period. And your suggestions because more efficiencies and less chaos of creating the structure to just be 1 update period and be able to see that implementation in the subsequent year. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll take member comments or concerns, clarifying questions.
You called it under the current policy, it's about 6 months after the board votes before it actually is implemented. Under the proposed policy, that would be extended to 7 months, and it would only be once a year. If I did my math right, and it's late, so I may not have. But it would give AVA staff more time to do it, but would require that they do all of it at the same phase instead of phasing it in. So I don't have a dog in the fight either way.
No worries. No, just understanding that it looks like they're looking to be more efficient. It seems like there's less options to make this change. It's a longer period. It must be a heavy lift for staff to make these changes and have these 2 opportunities for the board to make changes to the rate paying, the product structure, the product choice. It depends how many more cities or entities we're going to make those changes. It depends. Do you have any other member comments or clarifying questions? Not seeing any in the room. We'll look at public comments. 1 second.
There are no hands raised.
Thank you. I'll go back to member Litz.
This is only limited to the opt-up to the 100% renewable, correct?
No, the policy is ecumenical when it comes to what the product change is, but historically it has been used for defaulting to renewable 100 primarily.
Okay, so so this is what would be used if we came up with a 100% local renewable rate with an even higher premium. Or if we came up with some of these, if there was a jurisdictional opt-up to another rate, this same timing would apply. Like if some jurisdiction for some reason decided to apply the dynamic hourly pricing, it would be the same timing and process that you would apply.
There could probably be an exception to that, but of course, if they're going to have a new product, they can opt up to that or change to that as I understand it. But Alex, you can clarify and confirm.
I mean, if we're speaking hypothetically, if there were other options available, then the answer would be yes. This would be the policy that would determine the process by which jurisdictions would request to change to those hypothetical policy to products, and the timeline by which staff would implement them.
Okay.
And for me, Alex, I think I like more options than less options. I just have to understand more about the heavier lift or the challenge in reducing from 2 periods to 1 period. Is there more data or insight in regards to the proposal?
Sure. I mean, it gives more time to our power resources team to procure. And in addition to that, it allows us to operate doing this once a year. As we found when we were doing it twice a year was it felt like much of the year we were spending for and or actively implementing these default ranges, which are, you know, no small task to, you know, try to have you know, a really engaged public, send notices to every customer. Since different jurisdictions could choose which of those two options to do, it did tend to feel like we were spending much of our staff time and resources on implementing these. And in some cases, you know, some cities were even doing first the resident and then their commercial customers. So we want to make sure that we are responsive to these requests, and we also want to be sensitive to the limited time and resources that we have to implement them.
So understanding it was a heavy lift, and now if you're able to be more efficient, you can focus your energy in other initiatives, like working with community benefit organizations, with the resilient hubs, other initiatives, instead of working through the cycle twice a year. So like having one update cycle, one budget cycle, one resource sort of focus on it versus doing that constantly. Almost like a hamster wheel is what I'm hearing.
And with a slightly longer implementation period.
Well, I think they get bigger wheels now than smaller ones than before, so that's gives them more time to enjoy the ride.
Okay.
It's getting late. Yes, I heard.
And I should say that that extra lead time is helpful for outreach, you know, especially in cases where the default product change is to something that's more expensive. You know, we want to make sure that people are aware that this is happening, especially in a time of increasing rates, and that they can, that they're aware that they can choose a less expensive option with Ava. I should note that across the board, the communities that have implemented this have made sure to keep the default for customers on Care, FARA, and Medical Baseline. They've kept that, the default there at Bright Choice as the cheapest option. Of course, those customers can still opt up to Renewable 100. They would have to do so, you know, actively on their own.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, I think it's very important to have a deep and wide net of getting the information out to the resident, out to the business about the impact and the opportunities for them to stay at the current rate or opt out or opt down, depends on the initiative of the city or entity leaders. I think this is an action item for us.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to move staff's recommendation. I'll look for a second.
Second, Eldred.
Second, Member Pacheco in the room. Sorry, Member Eldred. We can have 2 seconds if you'd like to. Member Pacheco will defer to Member Eldred, and we'll go through any public comment. Seeing none,
No hands raised.
we'll go with the roll call vote.
Great, thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Eldred,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan? Member Swaminathan?
Yes.
Thank you. Member Pacheco? Member Carr?
Yes.
Member Lewis?
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza?
Yes.
Chair Hernandez?
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you very much. I did receive messaging suggesting that we might have not had the conversation finalized with item 6 with the CAC appointments. I do want to make sure I'm respectful to comments and conversations around the process there. We did go through the motion about the stipend, but I think there is concern that we didn't really finish that dialogue. Is what I've got notification. If we can speak to item 6 again, I want to see if there's a raised hand. There is a raised hand. Member Eldred.
Thanks. And due to the hour, I'll make this one real short. I just want to say that when we initially brought our motion to the board, we'd asked that alternates be able to rotate through to fill in empty seats. And that was rejected because there was fear that there would be too much representation from the counties that have members who applied. So I would just like it if you could mention, or whomever is reporting out to the board, that we really count on our board members to do outreach in their communities, and to, you know, as each section has more than one city, like each jurisdiction has more than one city in it, that we would really ask our board members to help identify members of their community that they can ask to participate. And then just wanted a quick clarification from staff, because at the beginning of the meeting, there was a public comment from a person whose name I believe was Davis, who was instrumental in Stockton, I think, joining the CAC, and he said that he was going to be the new appointee, but when we looked at the list that was presented to us, Davis's name was not on that list. And so I'm just wondering whether there is in fact appointees from those regions, they just didn't go through the same process, or just ask for clarification on that.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Member Eldred. Happy to address that. Yeah, so kind of a confusing kind of parallel processes going on here. So yes, we have a recent appointment made to serve from the San Joaquin County region from Stockton. And that was out of a totally kind of separate process from this open application cycle. And that is because per a, I think it was a June Board of Directors decision to create an interim seat on the CAC for the city of Stockton that the Stockton City Council would fill on their own. And then in December, the board approved making that seat permanent. And the city of Stockton just finished up that appointment process. It's just a coincidence that these two processes kind of played out in parallel along the same timelines. But yes, that was out of a couple of board decisions. That's how that kind of happenstance started there. But I hope that answers your question. Let me know if I can clarify anything.
Totally helpful, and really excited for Davis to be joining. That's all.
Thank you, member. I think member left. Do you have anything else? All right, so with that, we'll move and close the item. I understand there was notes in regards to member Eldred's comments that we'll take to the board. We're gonna move to item 11, CAC member and staff announcements, including request items on future agendas. Member Eldred, is this a new raised hand?
I just wanted to say that I really love you guys, and I'm going to miss you tons. And it's pretty wild that 7 and a bit years later that this is my last meeting. It's appropriate that it's gone on this long. You're amazing. I'm really excited for the new energy and the new people to come in. I look forward to being a public comment person. And thank you so much for everyone who's still here and doing this work. It's fundamentally transformative. And that's all.
Thank you for your years of service and dedication to our community. Best wishes wherever you're at in the world. Other member comments?
Well, I feel the same way also. We're, well, we're not going to be losing, but we're going to be missing one of our founding CAC members. I'm going to use the word founding. I know it's not exactly correct, but and certainly a pioneer on many fronts, and Olivia. And you know, I've always appreciated working with you and your, for me, your coaching. And you know, you've been a very good board member, and I know you're going great places. So best of luck to you.
And I'll just say, yeah, thank you, Anna Olivia, for spending all this time here, all these years, and being a great chair and vice chair when you were vice chair, and it's appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. I also see member Souza on camera, so comments, or vice chair.
Yes, and Olivia, I think I want to wring your brain because I hear so many great things coming from you and your wisdom. I'm glad you're still going to be out there. My call, if I call in desperation. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know that, again, echo those comments, and I know you're only an email or a text away. So really appreciate your support and energy of the organization and the great things we have done and we continue to do. The last item here, I think at the next CAC meeting, there was an item on the board that was not being discussed, but I think it's important to bring it forth, is the 2023 Supplier Diversity Report. That'll speak to Ava Community Energy's efforts in 2023 and 2024. So I know that this was did not make it to the agenda preview, but hopefully that will bring that forth in the next meeting, something that I think has good information, ensuring that we're reaching out to the community that we're looking to serve in many ways. With that, is there anything else from staff? Member left?
I think I may have missed request to place items. on
Yes,
future
this is still the time.
I would like to start a discussion about a voluntary 100% local renewable rate, with the idea that it would probably be higher than 100% renewable rate, but it would be local. And that would be a way for AVA maybe to get extra money to start actually promoting local resources in AVA territory.
So defining local means within energy resources, clean, renewable, green energies in the AVA, I can't say it that way, the service territory is what I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to start the discussion.
No, that's
with
fine.
that.
Great.
And yes, that's my initial idea.
Thank you very much. And do we have to make any motions or anything like that for that item? No.
You're the chair, it gets put on the agenda somewhere.
Oh, that's great. No, and I know that Adrian has a list moving forward, and I think we have a member Eldred went on camera, so hello. Saying good evening. Yes, all right. Anything else for the good of the order? With that, we're adjourned until the next meeting, which is April 15th, tax day at 6 p.m.
Oh, gosh.
Do your taxes before coming to this meeting, folks. Adjourned. Thank you and good night.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Ann.
Bye. Peace. Pura vida.
Bye, Ana Luvia.
Pura vida. Yeah, greetings from Costa Rica. It's real late here.